Hey guys, welcome back. In this video, let's create an alien cyborg character. So it's going to be kind of a sci-fi warrior combat, lady, female creature, whatever. But all right, so to get started, what would be the best way to get started with this? I think the best way is definitely to grab something that we could use as a base mesh. So to do this, I'm going to grab this female .zpr in my projects, and you should do the same. Once we have this, the first thing we could do is we could just get rid of the different levels of subdivision levels, right? So I'm going to go to level 1 and I'm going to delete higher. If you turn on your polyframe, you can see what that looks like. We have a really nice kind of a low poly female body, right, that we can use as our base mesh, and the total point count is 15,000 or 15.7, and the so that's pretty cool, right? So this is a good place to start. All right, so now let's just talk about how do we move from this point to start slowly adding more and more detail. What I would like to do is I would like to separate different pieces of this character so we can focus on different areas, right? So the first thing I would like to do is maybe let's separate the head and the neck, and this way we can give the character cool armor, and then we can give her cool boots and some arm pieces. But if we separate this into pieces, it's going to be a lot easier for us to manage and kind of focus on sculpt and all of that stuff, right? Instead of everything being just one big solid mesh. All right, so to do this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to decide where do I want to separate the head. I think I'm going to go for something right here. That's fine. So to do this, let's jump into zModeler. I'm going to hover over, let me get a little closer. I'm going to go to Poly Group, Poly Loop, and let's just select a loop. Something like that is fine. I'm going to hover over the next face and just do Poly Group Island and just simply click on it. All right. Now you can say I successfully kind of separated or created, I guess, two different poly groups, right? If we wanted to, we can always keep going more. Let's say I want to grab, oops, let's go back to the loop. Maybe I want to grab this one too, and just decide if that works. If you wanted to, we can even grab this. Why not? All right, so let's do this. How do we separate these two now? Well, I can do Control Shift and click. And I can always go to Subtools, Split, and let's just do Split Hidden, and voila, we have two separate layers, one being the head and the other one being the body, right? All right, very cool. Let's go ahead and do the same thing for the other pieces, right? The arms. So for the arms, I'm gonna do same exact thing. I would like to separate them as well, and let's just decide if we want to keep them in this pose, right? Do we want to create a T pose? Do we want to bring the arms down? What do you think would be easier for, to create armor pieces at what angle? I think it's going to be a lot easier if she was, if she had her arms down or in the T pose, right? Let's just put her in T pose. I'm going to jump out of perspective view. So now I'm in the straight orthographical view. And what I would like to do is I'm going to go into something called anchors, okay? And with the active symmetry turned on, what I would like to do is I'm going to click once and then click again to kind of bring these up. And I think having that, having her arms in T-pose is going to be a lot better for us, right? And this looks a little funny, right? Let's just adjust this. So I'm going to grab my move, make it kind of large, and let's just adjust this, but you want to adjust it without ruining this area too much, right? So make sure you are mindful about the fact that you don't want to disconnect this too much, even though we're probably going to end up adding clothing pieces to cover that, but just make something that makes sense, right? I'm just going to move these up, and again, she's going to have, somewhat of a shoulder there, right? And now you can see we successfully made something that looks a lot like a T-pose. All right, this is probably also the time you want to zoom out, look at the overall shape of your character and just decide, what age female is it? Do you want to touch up any of the big shapes. You know, maybe in our case we could make, you know, it's going to be a stylized character, right? So maybe we could just make the waist a little skinnier. Maybe she's a, you know, a younger girl, right? So we'll do something like that. We can decide if we like the length of the legs. We can make it shorter or longer. If you want it just a little bit longer, we could do this. We can select all of this here, press Control to fade it, and then we can do Control click to flip it, and then we can click again to fade it again. So now you can see it's really nice fade, right? We can grab our move, and what I could do is I can let's jump out of, or actually let's jump out of the active symmetry and click on this button here to put it in the center, right? Now I'm gonna unlock it, and let me reset it, and I'm gonna bring it down, bring it up to her kind of like this pelvis area, right? So I'm gonna do it right here, and I'm gonna lock it up, and now I can control the length of her legs, right? I can use this here to decide if I want it a little longer or shorter, whatever you're building, right? I think in my case I just want it just a little bit longer, so it's, again, it's a little more kind of stylized, and something like that I think is pretty cool. So that's how you would do that. Let's do Control and click to get rid of mask, and just decide if we like what we're looking at. The other thing we could do now, this is going to be kind of a creature alien character, so actually I wouldn't mind to extend the arms as well. I want to create kind of a robotic looking thing, so I don't want to keep it too you know, too perfect as far as the female body goes. Let's just mess this up a little bit. So let's grab these arms here, and for this I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to turn on the active symmetry. Let's do something like that. Do Control and click maybe a couple times, reverse the mask, fade it again, and let's go ahead and do the same thing. I'm going to grab my move, I'm going to unlock it, and I would like to put it into position, so somewhere here is fine, and we can just simply extend the arms out. Let's go ahead and lock this up, and now we can extend the arms, maybe make them a little bit longer, and let's see if we like that. I think that's pretty cool. So now we made the legs longer, the arms are a little bit longer. If she puts the arm down, it's going to be somewhere around her knee here, right? So that's pretty cool. I can also grab my move, and you know, I can make some adjustments here. Maybe I want to bring the knees up a little bit and make any other adjustments that we want. That's fine. I think that's pretty good. This is a good start, right? Now, what would be the next step? So the next step I would like to do is let's separate the arms as well. So I'm going to do that next. Same thing. I'm going to go to zModeler. Let's just decide which one of these loops works. So I think I'm just going to go for this one here. And that actually is not a good loop. Let's try this one. Yeah, that's a much better one. Let's do the island trick. So I'm going to go back to Polygroup Island, click on these. Great. Control Shift and click, and do split hidden. And all right, now we have the body and the arms separated. And the only other thing I would like to do is probably, let's figure out what do we want to do with the legs. I think for her to have, you know, cool sci-fi boots, it would be awesome if these were split as well. So let's split the legs as well. I'm gonna go to maybe a loop right below the knee here and just do something like this. And again, I need to switch it to loop, and let's just click. All right, very cool. Go back to island and click on that. Control Shift and click. Split hidden. All right, and now we have the head, we have the arms, the legs, or the bottom part of the legs, and then kind of the torso here, all separated. Very cool. All right, so this will be definitely step one. Okay, so step two, let's jump into sculpting and adding more detail to something very specific. So I'm going to hold down the Shift key and click on all the eyes here to hide everything, and I'm going to click on the first layer, which is going to be the head. Then we can press F if we wanted to frame it, and you can press F once again to frame it so it pivots correctly on your screen. And now let's talk about the facial features of this creature. You know, what does she look like, right? How do we turn this you know, normal looking face into something that maybe is kind of a cyborg creature kind of character, right? So to do this, what I'm going to do is, the first thing I would like to do is I'm going to grab my tablet, and let's just make our brush a little bit smaller, and let's just start sculpting, right? So I'm going to maybe make the lips a little bit smaller, and at this point it's going to be more of a preference, right? I would love the chin to be a little pointier too. Pointier and maybe a little smaller. And I'm gonna press the cheeks in. So do something like this. And I'm gonna bring these cheeks down. All right, and then for the nose, let's just decide if we want to give her kind of an alien look or alien nose, right? So maybe it's something unusual. I'm gonna do something like this, and maybe bring this up. It's kind of a straight look here, and then we can take the chin here, and I really want to pull this up and pull this back. Now, if you're doing this with me, make sure your active symmetry is on, so you're doing it on both sides. And I just want to make this whole neck a lot skinnier. All right, I'll do something like that. You can hold on the Shift key if we need to smooth anything. Now, if you start smoothing, it's gonna, by default, it's set to 100% intensity. A lot of times when I first start or doing low poly, I don't need it at 100%. I like it at 30, so it's a little less aggressive. So you could do that as well. All right, maybe she could also have, let's just decide on kind of the width of the nose. Maybe it's a little wider. And, you know, at this point, it's just artistic preferences. I would love the eyes to be much, much larger. I think that would be really cool. So let's just actually make these much larger, because it's going to be, again, it's going to be more like an alien creature kind of thing. So I want to make them larger, but I don't want to make them too round. I want to maintain kind of this more of a, you know, like a shape like this, so it feels more like an eye. Again, I'm just playing, right? Just having fun. So let's do something like that. I think that's pretty cool. And if we wanted to change the ears, maybe we want the ears to, you know, be a little unusual or pointy. How do we make pointy ears out of like normal ears? What we could do is we can grab the move and then turn on the AccuCurve. And the AccuCurve is going to make a sharp point, right? So then if I grab something and start pulling on it, you can see it's going to very quickly create a sharp point, which is very useful for this kind of situation, right? Just creating ears that are, you know, kind of a creature ears or elf ears, right? All right, we can decide if we like them going sideways, or maybe we want to pull them back more. Maybe it's more like that. And if I wanted to, I can maybe pull this part down a little bit. If we decide to, we can give her, you know, some kind of earrings. And I'm gonna grab my inflate and just inflate this area just a little bit. All right, we can decide if we like that. All right, very quickly, you can see if I go between this, you can see the difference, right? This is the head as it started, and after a little bit of work, we arrived to something that looks much, much different, which is really cool. in my opinion, let's just make this a little bit larger, and let's just maybe also push this in. The head feels a little bit too round to me, so we'll do something like that. And if we wanted to, we can decide if we want to maybe make the forehead a little bit larger, and we can decide if we want to give our character you know, some hair or something. But I think I'm pretty happy with this. This is pretty cool. Now I would love for my character to also have some kind of a face mask, right? So instead of it just being kind of a normal you know, organic face, it would be really cool if we had some kind of a mask. So a couple things, right? Before we get into a mask, maybe another thing we could do is actually add the eye in here. So to do this, what I could do is just push this back, this geometry here. I can just do sub with the inflate, and let's just push this in. Do something like that. Hold on the shift key if you need to smooth anything, and just kind of going back and forth. Just, I want to maintain clean topology, right? Let's insert an eye in here, and I'm just going to grab a sphere, drop a sphere in, and it's definitely way too large, so let's go ahead and just size it down a couple times. And you know what, even more. And I need to actually move this up. And I'm just going to put it in position. Something that looks like an eyeball. All right, very cool. So that's going to be our eyeball. If we wanted to, if I turn on my polyframe, we could rotate this to here. So this maybe is going to help us create more of an eye kind of look, right? Just kind of playing, that's fine. And the other thing we could do is let's also duplicate it, right? Let's go ahead and just mirror it, and then do mirror and weld. So that's going to give us two eyes. I'm going to go back to the face, grab my move, and let's just maybe adjust some of this to make the eye fit a little bit better. So do something like that. I want to make sure the eyelid is kind of staying over the eye. Okay, so now to create the mask, I would love to maintain sort of the topology instead of going into something super high resolution. It would be fun to attempt to maintain this topology and just turn some of that into a mask that kind of overlaps the face. How do we do that? So what we could do is we can duplicate this head. So now we have two of them, right? And what we could do is let's just go ahead and hide the bottom one. And, or I guess this should be the head and this is going to be the mask, right? So I can even name these. Let me just name this mask, and I'll name this to be the head for now, right? We can always change that, but let's say this is a mask, and so I'm going to hide the head, and now I just need to delete pieces of the mesh that I don't want, right? Before I do that, you know, it would be really interesting too if we expanded this just a little bit, right? So, or extrude it, right? Let's extrude this. So I'm going to go to zModeler. I'm going to go into extrude polygroup all. All right, and let's just simply extrude a little thickness, right? And that's going to give us a little bit of a thickness that is going, and you can see that right there, right? You have this thickness. Now this is going to be the mask. So now we have the head, and then we have the mask over the head. Now what I would like to do is I need to get rid of pieces of this mesh that I don't want, right? So how do I do that? So maybe one way I could do that is using the cut tool. To do this, let's just do Control Shift and jump into a quick pick, and in here let's just grab something like the knife curve. And now what I could do is I can just do Control Shift and click, start dragging, and you can see the gradient part. That's the part that's going to be cut out. So I actually want this to be coming from the top, right? And let's just decide what type of mask we want, and we can make additional cuts after we do this first cut. So we'll do something like this. Press Alt. I'm going to start kind of bending this, and now I can do maybe Alt again. Let's go. I want to go around the ear. Press Alt one more time, and that's going to be sort of the shape of my mask. Okay, now I'm just going to make a cut. Now I have something like this. Now let's go ahead and bring our head back so we can see what's going on. And now we have this face mask. And you know what? I'm actually going to cut this part out too. I think it would be cool if the nose was visible. So I think that's the mask I'm going to go with. We can always make this a little more tech looking by, if you double click your Alt, you can make kind of sharp corners like that, and we can even do something along these lines. Alright, so we can always add those. That's pretty cool. Now to clean this up, let's just simply zRemesh this. So I'm going to jump into zRemesh. Let's switch this to like 1, and I'm going to do detect edges, keep groups, and let's go ahead and leave adapt on. And let's also turn off smoothing groups. So I'm going to put it on 0. And let's do a zRemesh. And turn on our active symmetry as well. And let's do zRemesh. Alright, now we can see we have a much cleaner topology for our mask, right? We can always do half and maybe simplify it even more. And now it's even better. And that's pretty much perfect as far as the mask, kind of a sci-fi front mask that I was thinking of. And the only other thing that I'm not sure about is the eyes, right? I think some of the eyelids should be seen as well. So let's adjust this mask a little bit. Let's just simply move this. I'm going to grab my move topology, and I'm just going to move this up a little and down, right? So essentially I want to reveal some of those eyelids. Alright, you can see some of this extra geometry I'm seeing, which is going to be the back of the mask. If I go into a solo mode, you can see what's happening, right? I actually don't need this green internal part, so I'm going to do Control Shift and click, and do Control Shift and click one more time to get rid of it. I can turn my double on, and essentially I'm getting rid of this inside, this inside side, right? So I could do delete hidden. And now if I jump out of the solo, you can see that looks much cleaner, and that is much easier to manage, right? So now we have this kind of a cool alien face with a good start for kind of an interesting mask of some sort, right? And the cool thing about this is that we maintain our low poly topology, right? So this is going to be great for us if we wanted to add any kind of additional details to this. For example, if you want to push, a hole through, right? How do we do that? You can always go to zModeler. You can go to QMesh, and because this is such a low poly, my active symmetry is on. I can literally take this face and just push it down, and push it in, and just create a hole, right? Which is very cool, because if you go into dynamic subdivision, turn your dynamics on, you can see that now we have this really cool detail that looks very interesting. And I can turn up my subdivision, make this even smoother, and just create kind of a cool details that way, right? Let me turn this off, and let me undo this actually. And let me show you another way. Another way you can make a hole that's a little more round instead of square is you can hover over a point, and then you can do, what you can do is you can go into a split, and you can see it's a split point, right? So now if I start dragging this, I can create kind of like this round hole. If I let go, it's going to remember the radius of this, which means if I click anywhere else one more time, like here, it's going to create the same hole with the same size. And again, it's doing it on both sides because I have active symmetry on. And now same thing, if I go back into well, I'm already in QMesh. If you hover over a face instead of a point and just push this down, and of course you want to make sure that you have poly group all selected, right? And push this face down and get rid of it, it's going to create a hole that's round versus a square. And it's nice because it's also going to kind of take care of any kind of topology, right? So we don't have to worry about things, you know, getting weird, and keeping it low poly for like a game model. So just a little tip. I think that looks really cool. I'm kind of happy with this. Now, because now we have this low poly mask over the face, you can always have fun with this. You can always grab the move, turn the acute curve on. And I know that this is a mask and she doesn't really have, you know, eyelashes, but because this is a female character, maybe it would be kind of cool to do something like this, make it a little pointy just for fun. Alright, so you can decide what you like, but I think this is pretty cool detail because it also kind of goes with the pointy ears. And if you want to smooth any of this, hold on the shift key and just clean this up a little. Smooth this up, make sure it's not, the topology is nice and clean, right? Let's maybe add a strap for the mask. I'm going to select my head, and let's just go into our brushes, and let's choose something called Curve Strap Snap. And let's just start dragging a strap. All right, I'm going to drag this actually into over the mask a little bit, so it looks something like that. I think that's pretty cool. And if I wanted to connect these pieces here, I can just keep dragging until they meet. Let's go ahead and click to bake this in. Now we can grab our move, and if you have any adjustments, make sure acute curve is off. You can make any final adjustments, just make sure it's nice and straight. Let's go ahead and split this into its own layer. So I'm going to say split on mask, right? So now this little strap is going to be on its own layer. If I turn polyframe on, we can maybe, you know, do something here. Let's go ahead and clean this up. Let me go to zModeler, go to delete. Let's do single poly, and let's just simply delete some of these faces that are kind of don't really make much sense. All right, once you delete them, what you could do is you can now connect these edges. I'm going to right click, let's go to bridge. Let's say edges, turn my symmetry off. I'm going to click on this edge here and then click on this edge to have them meet. And let me do the same thing here. I'm going to select this edge here and then this one here. And of course the same thing on the bottom. Very cool. Now we can maybe turn this into some kind of a back clip. So to do this, what I'm going to do is go to extrude, and let's just extrude this out and maybe do something like that. So it looks like there's some kind of a clip on the back. We can continue having fun. Let's go to inset, and let's just inset this polygon like this. Go to QMesh. Let's just maybe push this in just a little bit, right? And now it's a really cool effect of like a back clip on the back of the strap of the mask. So you can decide if you like that. Another thing we can do is maybe let's hover over these faces here. I'm going to turn my symmetry back on, and let's just do something here. Let's go to single poly, and let's just maybe make this into something a little more interesting, right? I think it would be cool if the character had a little bit of the, you know, some kind of a hair on top as well. Let's go ahead and do that. Make sure you save your work or save your tool. All right, there's many different ways to do hair. In my case, I'm just going to use this IMM brush, and I'll include a link in the descriptions, but it's just a simple shape that you can insert, and it's a cool way to quickly create kind of a low poly hair. So maybe I could do something like that. All right, you guys, I'm not going to add too many more. I just wanted to do a few kind of a crazy warrior alien haircut here. I think that works. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to merge all these hairs into one layer by selecting one of the layers and just simply clicking on merge. And then I'm going to say merge down. Alright, so that's going to put all the hair on one same level. Alright, if we wanted to, I could always go to geometry and turn on dynamic subdivision to have a smooth preview of my hair. Alright, and then let's go ahead and go back into our subtools. And I'm going to turn on the body next. And let's see if we can start working on the body, and I might as well turn the arms on as well. The next thing that I would like to add to my character is some kind of a division between the neck and the actual body, right? So let me select the body layer, turn on my polyframe. And using zModeler, let's just extrude some geometry that would work as a kind of a division between the neck and the armor, right? So to do this, I'm gonna go to zModeler. So I'm gonna go to polygroup, polyloop, and what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna select or polygroup the top, and I'm gonna go into, let's go into something like extrude, and then let's just simply pull this up, and that's gonna create kind of an interesting color for us, right? And of course we can work with this and make it better. To fix this, I can hold on the shift key and just smooth this out and just kind of make a little indent maybe for the front. Let's go to the back. I think in the back I would like this to be actually higher up. So I'm just going to simply pull this up. Something like that I think is perfect. I'll do the same thing here. We can decide if we like that. Maybe we can make it a little better. One of the things I could do is maybe just make this whole thing right here much taller. All right, I think that works pretty well as far as the division goes. And I see some spaces there, so I can just simply move this in and make sure I don't have any gaps or any weird spaces. We can decide if we like this front. Maybe one of the things we could do is just lower this even more and just maybe create more like a ramp, right? So it's something a little more gradual. I'm just holding down the smooth key to kind of smooth this out and kind of almost melt it right into place. All right, let's continue adding more detail. I'm gonna go back into zModeler. Holding down the Alt key, I'm just gonna select all of these pieces here. And what I would like to do is I would like to create more of a thicker rim here going all the way around. So I'm gonna select all of this, and I'm just gonna select all of these pieces as well. And now what I would like to do is let's go to Q Mesh and let's just pull this up. I think that looks pretty good. If I wanted to, I can also take these corners here and maybe make this a little sharper. Just a personal preference. Okay, if we wanted to add some additional loops inside this collar, let's do that just in case we decide to later animate any of this. It would be a good idea to insert a couple edges here. So I'm going to go to zModeler, hover over my edge. I'm going to go to insert, and let's just do multiple. And let's just insert maybe just even something like this, I think is pretty good. And then I'm going to go on the inside edge and the inside of the color and just click to repeat the same topology, right? And that's going to give us a nice low poly topology in case we decide to, again, bend this or do anything with it animation wise later on. All right, next let's create some shoulder pads for this character. And what I'm visualizing is just kind of these ginormous shoulder pads, kind of like a, like an almost like an Overwatch character where it's just super exaggerated, and it doesn't make much sense, right? Because it's maybe it's not, as we know, like a metal shoulder pad. Maybe it's made out of something else, so it's a little bit lighter metal or plastic, but it's just huge. Now to get this going, I just realized if I start building a shoulder pad, I won't really get a good feeling for the design of the shoulder pad unless the arms are a little bit lower. So instead of a T-pose, instead of having them down or having a T-pose, let's make an A-pose. So I'm going to actually bend the arms back about 45 degrees instead of having them at 90. So to do this, I'm going to go back to my arms, and I'm literally just going to go to my brush, grab my anchor, my symmetry is still on, and I just want to bend them maybe something like this. And this is going to give me all this room here to figure out what kind of shoulder pad I want, right? And I don't mind that there's a disconnection here, because all of this is going to be there's going to be a shoulder pad up here. This is going to be an armor piece that we can extend all of that design-wise. So we don't need this to be connected. Keep that in mind. And then of course we could always take our move brush and we could just tuck it in just a little bit better, right? So maybe it's something like this, right? Something that makes sense. All right, cool. So next, let's figure out, and you know what? I can even pull this part out just a little more. So it's almost like a vest. All right, so to get the shoulder pad going, what would be the best way to do this? There's probably 10 million ways of building a shoulder pad, but let's just do something like, let's insert a box. I'm just gonna grab a cube here. It comes in ginormous, so I'm just gonna size it down. And I do want to maintain it large, right? Because again, I want to create something oversized. So I'm thinking even like this big, right? Like just something huge. So we'll do something like this. And to start cutting it out, let me just get it into kind of a better shape. So maybe we have like a shape like this, right? And now I guess what we could do is we could just turn it into, let's turn it into Dynamesh. I'm going to turn this into 256. And this way it's going to give us a lot of topology to play with, and it's going to be almost like clay, right? And I think this should be enough. Let's just see how this works. Now, the other thing that I would like to do is, let's just do Control and Shift, jump into our quick pick, get something like the knife tool, and we can literally just start carving this out, right? So I'm going to make sure I'm not in the perspective view. I do want to be in the straight orthographical view. I'm going to go to my draw, hide my gizmo, and then holding down Control and Shift, let's just start carving this out. So maybe, we can decide what kind of shape we want for this, but maybe there's like a slope here, and it's going to be kind of a sci-fi looking shoulder pad. So I'm going to do something like this. Maybe I'll cut this corner off. I can cut this corner off as well. Something like this. If I wanted to create some sort of indentation, I can tap Alt twice, and that's going to give me kind of a short, sharp corner, right? So then I can just do something like that. Then if I wanted to sort of bevel some of these, I could just cut these off and just get rid of any kind of sharp corners, right? So even something like that feels pretty cool. Let me just maybe shorten or clean this up a little more. So I'll do something like just clean this, cut this bottom part off, and just get a shape that is sort of interesting, that you like. And I can trim the top here too. All right, so let's say I have something like this. How would I? And I wouldn't mind, honestly, just make it a little bit larger and maybe get it into, let's start kind of figuring out how this fits onto her arm, right? So one of the things I was thinking of is having kind of like a double one. So what does that mean? So if I, let me do this. I'm gonna go into this view and I'm gonna solo this. Alright, so if I turn my polyframe on, you can see what that looks like, and it's currently somewhat messy. How do we clean this up? To clean this up, let's just go into geometry, and let's go to Z-Remesher. Let's turn on detect edges, keep groups, and let's also leave this on 0.5, and I'm going to leave adapt off and just do Z-Remesh. Alright, and that's going to give me something like this, which is a little bit nicer. I can even do half and see what that gives me. Okay, so we can just keep dialing it down, and let's just do half again. And I think this is pretty good. This is what I kind of need to start playing around with zModeler, right? If I wanted to clean up any of this, for example, this edge right here seems to be causing, somewhat issues, right? I would like this to be straighter. I can always go to zModeler, hover over the edge, just go to delete, do edge loop complete, and just click on it. And you can clean it up that way, right? We can just maybe delete this one and just simplify it even further, right? So you can very quickly have full control over the mesh with zModeler now because it's so low, right? And if I jump out of the solo, I can see how this is looking. And so now I have just a shape that looks something like this, right? Now, how do we make this to look more like a shoulder pad? Actually, I'm going to leave this on, and let's start playing around with this. So one of the things I would like to do, I'm going to go into a solo mode, and I would like to make this feel like it has some kind of a thickness. So I can always hold down the Alt key, and let's just make a selection of all of this here. I think that's pretty good. Let's go ahead and push this in. So to do that, I can press spacebar, go to extrude. Let's do single poly, right? Because this is a group. And let's just simply push this in. All right, and that's going to be kind of the inside part of our shoulder pad. Next, I'm going to hold on the Alt key. I'm going to select all of these faces here. Just selecting sort of all the external pieces. Do something like that. Let's go ahead and go into inset. I'm going to do single poly, and let's just inset all of this here. So I'm going to create something that looks like this. All right, now I have something like this, and it created kind of an unusual design here by accident, and I actually almost don't mind it. All right, so now we just need to extrude our faces and see how that's looking. Let's let's press spacebar, go to extrude, let's do poly group all, and let's just add a little bit of a thickness to this, right? Now we have this interesting shoulder pad with some kind of a double thickness to it, right? Which is kind of cool. If I jump out of the solo mode, you can see what that looks like. Now I just need some maybe additional design here, maybe a couple spikes, and I think that would be pretty cool, right? So let's try and see how that's actually fitting onto the shoulder. So I'm gonna maybe put it into place, just see if it makes sense. So something like that, I think is pretty cool. And if I wanted to add some additional designs to the front here, I could always, let me jump out of the wireframe, let's go to draw, and let's just insert a couple things, right? So one of the things I could do is jump into here, let's press I, and let's look at something like IMM parts. I'm going to click on IMM parts, press M, and now I have all these different options to choose from. I can even put maybe one here and one here. I think that's pretty cool. If we wanted to add more, let's jump back in here and press I and see what else we got. We have this machine parts here. I'm going to press M and see if we can choose something from all of these options. I think any one of these is pretty cool, right? So I kind of like this one, this round one, or maybe something like this, right? So I'm going to grab this knot 02 and let's just put one in the middle and do something like that. If I wanted to change the thickness of it, I can always grab my move and just kind of push it in. And the nice thing about these is that they are, and we could still of course rotate it, move it around, The nice thing about these is that they are all low poly, right? So they are kind of clean topology. And that is, I think it's pretty cool design for something like this, you know, ginormous shoulder pad, kind of what I was thinking. I would love to also add a few spikes to this. So to add the spikes, let's just use our insert brush as well. Let's jump back in here, press I, and let's see if we have any cones that we can insert. Let's go into our IMM primitives, and in here, let's see what we got. I actually don't see a cone, so that's okay. Let's just go ahead and just go back to our subtool, and we'll do insert a cone, and that is exactly what I was thinking. Let me size this down. Grab my move, and let's just make it a little bit smaller. And if I turn on my polyframe, I can see what that looks like. This is a little too heavy. I don't really need all of these edges, right? So I can always ZRemesh this. Let's jump into geometry, ZRemesher. I'm just gonna put it like 0.2, super low, turn adapt off. And let's just do a ZRemesh. And that is a little bit better. I also don't need the bottom part, so I can always go to polygroups. And let me just do groups by normals. And what I can do now is I can just delete this bottom part, right? Now I can just do Control Shift and click to hide the bottom, and we probably don't need this green one either. And let's just do delete hidden. If I wanted to clean any of this up, I can of course go to zModeler, hover over an edge, and just do an edge, delete edge, right? We can even make it even lower, right, if we wanted to. Let's also go into inset. Let's do a poly loop, and let's just maybe inset all of this here. Go to extrude, polygroup all, and let's just maybe do something like that. So our spike has, you know, some kind of a interesting detail in it, right? If I wanted to see the the bottom of it, I can always turn double on. And now let's just get this into position. I'm gonna jump out of polyframe, grab my move, and I can always reset my rotation. And let's just make it maybe a little bit taller and skinnier. And let's just figure out how this works. So I'm thinking of something like this. You have a couple spikes that are sticking out from the shoulder pad. And I would love that to be, you know, in the middle, right? Holding down the control key, I can make more of them. So maybe I can do two here. Let's put one here. Maybe this one could be a little smaller. Holding on control key, let's drag another one, and let's maybe add a couple here as well on the bottom here. So we'll do something like that. And now we have this really cool shoulder pad with all these dangerous looking spikes. And that is what I was going for. Now I'm not happy with the position of these. Let's turn our polygroups on, and let's just do auto groups. All right, and to move these over, all I need to do is just grab my move, and of course I don't want to move the top ones. I'm gonna hold on to control key and just mask them out, and I just want to move these guys, so I'm gonna move this over. I'm trying to figure out if I like this one. Maybe we can move this one as well, just a little bit. So it's kind of in the middle of this piece. And I think, let me see if I want to move these, maybe just a little bit. All right, so something like that I think is perfect. Let's check it out. Jump out of polyframe. Very cool. Now the backside doesn't really have any design. I'm gonna press Alt and click on this mesh here. Let's turn our polyframe on. Let's see if we can add maybe some kind of design here. Or I guess the easiest thing would just be to insert another shape, right? So let's just go back into brush, press I, and again, let's just insert something. So I'm gonna jump into machine parts, press M, and we can decide what we want to insert. I kind of like this piece here. I'm gonna grab this. It's called recessed dial. Kind of like that. Let's just do that. We'll do something like that. And then of course it's way too thick, so I'm gonna bring this in. Turn the poly frame off, and now I have this really cool design in the back. All right, I'm pretty happy with this. I like this. So let's go ahead and merge everything down. I'm gonna go to merge, do a merge down, and now you can see my spike is on its own layer, right? Which means I can mirror it, and then I can do a mirror and weld to have two of them. And now our character is getting there, right? So now we have these cool shoulder pads. Let's just continue moving down, right? So next, we definitely want to adjust the arms. This looks kind of weird, and we want to start building something that looks like armor, right? Now, one of the things I would love to do is I would love to add thickness to the vest of this border, right? So to do that, let's go into our bodysuit, and then before we do any of this, make sure you save your tool. Go into your solo mode. Let's turn the double on, and let's see if we can add some thickness to this, right? Because the topology looks really good, but it just needs some thickness here. So I'm gonna turn my polyframe on. I'm gonna undo that, and instead let's just do this manually. How do we do this manually? Well, I can just hover over any face, hold on the Alt key, and just simply paint the loop that I want to select. So I'm going to make a selection manually. Just go all the way around. Grab this guy as well. Now we have something like this. Now if I wanted to adjust this point, of course I can just simply move it, right? I can just do something like that. That's pretty perfect. Let's go back into zModeler, hover over the face. Let's go to extrude and single poly. And what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna extrude this piece out and create myself kind of a nice thickness for the armor. Jump out of the solo mode and take a look. Now you can see, right? You can see how this is looking much better. We just need to make sure that the arm, I'm going to grab my move, hold on the Alt key, select the arm. I just need to make sure that the arm piece is inside, right? So I'm just going to push this inside the mesh. And make sure it fits, it looks good from all the directions. Maybe I can move this down a little. If I needed to, of course, I can also hide the shoulder pads for 1 second. So we can see how it's fitting, and I think all of this looks pretty fantastic. Maybe I can just do something like this. I'm honestly kind of liking that. That's cool. Let's go ahead and turn this back on. As soon as you get to the point that you like, again, keep saving, save my work. And let's just, let's continue. All right, so as I'm looking at this in the non-perspective mode, there's a trick I want to show you guys. So one thing you could do, if you wanted to change the shape of something, so for example, I'm looking at the shoulder pads, and let's say I want to adjust them a little bit. Well, if I just grab the move brush, and even if I make it super large, and of course turn my active symmetry on, if I start dragging these, you can see what's going to happen, right? It's going to it's going to adjust one side more favorably than the other one. So if I turn, you can see that it's actually working pretty well. I didn't expect that, but let me make this a little smaller. But you can see how it's pulling the front, but not really the back. And yeah, I can fight with this and YZ and figure out how can I grab this here and make sure it's grabbing this here, the exact point. But is there a tool that will make this easier? And there's something called Move Infinite Depth. And that's a really cool brush that you can use once in a while. And the cool thing about this brush is that as I'm grabbing this front point right here, it's infinitely shooting a ray. So it's gonna grab all of these points along the edge, right? Which is really cool. So if I start pulling this, I know that it's doing it exactly the same way with this one as well. So it's a really powerful brush. And I might have mentioned this before, but I have this whole UI in my community tab with all the brushes as well. If somebody's watching this wants to download, maybe that would be helpful to you guys, but it's there. But anyway, so you can use this brush to kind of change the shape of something even after you model it. And you can just incrementally, just piece by piece. Maybe I want to, move this down. I could do that. Maybe I want to create like a little bend here. I can do that. It's creating kind of an interesting. I have to be careful not to mess up my bolts because they're round. But you can see how I just started creating like this unusual detail using a different brush. You can just even do something like that, right? It's creating even more here. And just very carefully, you can even extend these. Maybe I want to make them larger. I can make this shorter, whatever you want. But so that's a cool brush. Keep that in mind. It's pretty powerful. And then again, I just messed up my little bolt. Next thing we can do is address the body. Let's switch to the body, and let's turn on a polyframe, and let's just see if we can play. We can go to solo mode, and let's just see if we can turn this into something that looks a little more like, instead of a tight, skin tight suit, maybe let's start adding some kind of extrusions and extensions and all of that stuff. So I'm gonna go to zModeler, and let's just start selecting some loops. So if I go to poly groups, we'll do poly loops, and let's just see if we can maybe select. Let's see what this gives us. It's going to give us this loop here, which is kind of random, but sometimes it's interesting. It's going to give you things that maybe look cool that you didn't really plan on. And what do I mean by that? So like, it's honestly, I thought this was going to be a loop, but you could see how it's a spiral. So if I click on it, it's not selecting just one loop. It's actually spiraling out of control. And this is definitely an accident, right? I didn't mean to do that. But I can use this to my advantage. And for example, if I leave it and I go into something like the extrude, right? I could do polygroup all. And now if I start extruding this, you can see I can start creating crazy detail right here that I didn't really plan for. And that's kind of really interesting way to keep your awareness high, because sometimes you will have accidents that are super cool, and you can take advantage of them, right? I could also, of course, do manual selection, right? So again, holding down the Alt key, I can design something really specific, right? And let's just do, maybe I have a design that looks something like this. Now, another thing you could do, if everything that you're selecting right now, because you're in kind of a low poly mode, right? Everything is going to be super square. But there's a trick. If you wanted to round these up, but keep the same topology, what you could do is you can go into your lightbox, go into brushes, go into the smooth folder, and in here there's something called smooth groups. If I double click on smooth groups, it's going to say use shift key to use this, right? So I'm going to say okay. And now if I hold on the shift key, you can see that instead of a smooth brush, I have something called smooth groups. So now what I could do is I can actually go through and I can make these round and make them a little more organic looking, right? So maybe that's going to look and feel a little bit better as far as the armor goes. And I can do the same thing back here. I can round all this up. And the topology is still great, right? All of this still works as far as the game topology goes. But now we created something really interesting and very unique. And now this is going to make a really cool extrusion, right? So now if I hover over this, go to extrude, poly group all, let's do single poly. And let's just pull these out. Now I have this really cool shape coming out. And if I wanted to bevel it, let's go with the edge, go to bevel. We'll do edge loop complete. And now what you want to do is be mindful when you're doing this. You could see that you can grab the edge from this side, or you can grab the edge from this side. Now if I grab it on the right and start doing it, it's not going to work. But if I go on the left and then go to the edge mode, then I can actually bevel this, right? So there's a difference, so keep that in mind. So I'm going to bevel this right here, and now I have something like that. And that's right away starting to look a little more, you know, somewhat sci-fi. Let's just continue extruding more, right? So I'm going to turn this back on and let's see what else we can extrude. Let's maybe extrude the chest area. So I'm going to go to, I'm going to hover over a face, press Alt, and let's just make a selection of all of these faces here on the chest. And I'm going to go all the way down here. And then we'll use our smooth polygroup trick to make this into something that makes sense, right? So let's do all of these as well. I think that's pretty cool. Now hold on the Shift key, and now what we can do is we can smooth these out. Alright, hover over a face. Let's go to extrude, single poly, and let's just make an extrusion. So we'll create almost like a chest plate. You can decide if you want to bevel those edges or not. I'm just going to leave mine alone. You can see what that looks like. Alright, let's just do a few more. At this point, it's just a design preference, right? So just take a moment and design something that you like that's unique. Alright, I'm going to stop here. Hopefully you made something cool. Maybe you use mine as a reference. You're welcome to do that. I'm just kind of having fun and, you know, just creating kind of a random design. But once you're done, let's jump out of this solo mode, go into perspective view and take a look. And now we have this really cool looking character. I have a couple touch-ups that I need to do, like right here, but I'm liking everything else. I think this is looking really nice. And next, let's go ahead and maybe work on either the boots or the arms, right? That's kind of the last thing that is left. So I think we are kind of just going top down, so might as well jump on the arms next. So make sure you select your arms by holding down the Alt key and clicking on the arms. And let's talk about this. So one thing, because we made these a little bit longer, right? It does look a little strange here. If you look at the kind of a basic human anatomy, you will know that this looks a little strange. So maybe before we do anything, let's adjust some of this. Maybe we'll do something like that. Maybe there's like a little bend here, and we want to make sure that the elbow looks something like this, and that's pretty, I think that's pretty good, right? So now the one thing that I want to mention as far as the design goes is right now she looks somewhat still human and normal. To make this look more like an alien combat soldier, right? We want to add really chunky, huge boots, and also add armor right here that kind of maybe makes sense with the shoulder pads. So I think it needs to be chunky as well. And let's just start playing around with that. And maybe we can even create more of an elbow. Not sure it's going to be seen or not, just kind of playing around at this point. Just it's a good idea to kind of understand your anatomy and make sure that you understand how things look from different angles, right? It's one of the biggest parts about becoming an artist or a sculptor is you want to make sure that as you rotate your model, your human model, you want to detect all the imperfections that don't make sense from every angle. Just good practice. All right, cool. So let's play with the arms. So I'm gonna go into the arm layer and let's turn our polyframe on. Oops. Turn our polyframe on, and let's just start extruding things here as well, right? So I'm gonna make cool panels, and we can decide what the design for these should be, but maybe there's gonna be kind of like the bottom panel and then the top panel. So let's work on the top panel. So I'm gonna come here to the top, and I'm not really sure if we need to work on both of these. Maybe that's gonna be a little bit too distracting. Let's delete one of these arms and just work on one, just flip it over, right? Because they're gonna be symmetrical. So how do we do that? I can just do auto groups. I can do Control Shift and click to hide. Let me hide this one and just do delete hidden. All right, and then here, I'm not sure if I want to see the whole body or not. The nice thing is we're working in such low poly still that all of this is really responsive and fast, which is really cool. That's a cool workflow because it doesn't really bog down your computer to work this way. But anyways, let's start extruding things from the arm. So we can, of course, insert a shape and sort of mold it to the arm. That would be one way of doing it. Another way of doing it would just be extruding or extracting things out of this arm. And maybe let's do that. So what I'm going to do actually, I'm going to duplicate this arm. I'm going to hide the original. I'm going to take this one. Let's do auto group so it's a different color, which is like pink. And let's just start deleting things that we don't want to be part of the armor. So I know I want to kind of keep her arm separate. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to zModeler. Let's grab a loop. So I'm going to do poly group, a loop. Let's just select maybe like this loop here, for example. And let's just do a island, select all of these. Oops, select all of these. And let's do Control Shift and click again. And let's do delete hidden. Let me bring the other arm back so I can see what I'm doing. Right, so now we have this kind of an overlapping geo, and now I don't really need to do anything up here. Let's just delete maybe. I'm gonna do, let's do a poly loop here. Let's select a poly loop here as well. Grab all of these. And let's just turn this one into an island also. Control Shift and click. And do delete hidden, right? So now I have this kind of this strip to play with. And I can jump out of vective symmetry. So let's see. I think we will probably need a lot of this for the bottom as well, right? So let's do this. Let's rename this one as arm, so we know this is like the original arm. And then this is going to be kind of our new mesh, right? So I can call it armor if I wanted to. And let me just make another duplicate of that as well. So maybe I'll need it for the bottom, so I'll hide that. And let me go back up here and let's start deleting stuff. Let's actually go to delete. Let's do poly loop. And let's just maybe delete all of these and all of these. And let's just decide what we want to keep for the top armor, right? So I also don't want any of this. Now because this is separate here, I can delete this as an island, right? So that means I can go to hover over face, go to delete, and instead of poly loop, I can just say an island. That means if I click on this, it's going to delete all the meshes, all the faces that are not touching other faces, which is an island, right? So I can just click, and that would be a cool way to delete it. All right, so this looks pretty good. Now, I would like this to be obviously much thicker, right? And also probably a little less dense. So I would like to go to ZRemesher. Let's go to ZRemesher. Let's turn adapt off, and let's just do half of whatever this is. And I'm simply going to say ZRemesh. All right, it's kind of hard to see, so I can go into a solo mode, take a look, and I can see what I have. I'm gonna half one more time and maybe again. And now I have something a lot simpler, right? I just have this simple topology. Let's jump out of solo mode. And I can't see this well, so I'm gonna grab my move, center it, and let me just move this up a little. All right, very cool. Now we can start maybe extracting it, give it some thickness, right? And start modeling something out of this. So one of the things I could do is go to my move brush and maybe start kind of moving these points around. And I want to start creating something that looks a little wider, right? So it's going to be an armor. Okay, if I want to smooth any of this, I can hold on the shift key and just kind of smooth these inside faces. And now to give it a little thickness, let's just decide if we want to do anything about these edges. Maybe we can actually round these up. And I'll do the same thing here. And right now I'm using move topology, but the move should work as well, as long as it's kind of small. I'm just kind of jumping between these two. So I want to really make these corners a little more round. Alright, so now it looks more like, almost like a plate. Let's go ahead and give it some thickness. So to do that, I'm just going to go to zModeler, hover over a face, let's go to extrude, and let's just do polygroup all. And we can auto group it because it's kind of a weird color, and then I'm gonna make it nice and thick, so we can decide what kind of thickness we want. Now I would like this to be kind of the bottom piece here, maybe that's the one closer to the arm, and then I'm going to extrude it again to give it a second one. So now I have kind of a double going on. And now what I would like to do is I would like to take this. Now what we could do is we can take this inside one and let's just pull it out. And by pulling it out, it's going to create kind of this illusion of a double stack plates, or like a armor. And I think that's really cool, right? We can do that. If we wanted to create some straps, maybe so it looks like this is being held somehow, we can always remember we saved that other piece, that we can use it to our advantage, right? So I can turn this piece back on, and let's use this. So I'm gonna actually duplicate it again, hide my original one, grab this one, and what I would like to do is I'm gonna create a couple straps out of this. So to do this, what I would like to do is go to polygroup. Let's do polygroup loop, and let's just decide which one of these we like. I think I like this one down here, and that's going to be one. And you know what? I can even make it kind of thick. So I'll take this one, and I'll take also this one, maybe here. All right, so this is going to be my holder. So now I can do Control Shift and click, and then Control Shift and click again, then delete hidden. Take these guys, go to extrude, let's do polygroup all, and let's just simply extract or expand them out, right? So give it some thickness. Now we have these cool straps, which is perfect. Now let's go back to our armor and take a look. And again, keep in mind we still have that lower one, so we can do some cool stuff on the bottom as well if we wanted to. But this is a really cool way to give things that perfectly fit on the arm, right? All of this is perfectly custom designed. You can see the way this is bending because it's made out of the arm, right? So it's going to have the same kind of flow, and that's really interesting. So at this point we can make more designs, right? We can do just like we did on the body. I can hold down zModeler, hold down the Alt key, and I can just do something like this. And then if, let's say I want to round these up, remember hold on the Shift key, just round this up, do something like that. I think that's good. And then if I wanted to push this in, I can go to Extrude, Polygroup All, and push this in. If I wanted to bevel this edge here, hover over the edge, go to Bevel, and let's just bevel all of these. And we can bevel these too. And maybe this one. Alright, if we wanted to insert detail, we can of course use the normal map, or again, if you wanted to insert something using IMM brushes, you could do that. Press I, let's jump into our machine parts, if I can find them. Let's go into these, let's press M, and any one of these would work. I think I'm just going to grab this guy again, just do like a bolt here. Now if you wanted to add more on the bottom, maybe let's go ahead and turn this thing back on, our original one, and let me turn my polyframe on, and let's just decide if we want to do maybe an additional you know, something down here as well. So same thing, let's just simply let's go ahead and solo it, and let's turn it into low poly, right? So I'm going to go into zRemesher again, geometry. Let's just do half, and I'm going to leave everything off and just do zRemesh. And I'm going to do half again, and maybe one more. All right, now I have something really simple. I think this is perfect. All right, so now let's just maybe select something. So I'm going to go zModeler. Let me just select maybe these guys here. I'm going to select all of these, and let's just make maybe a panel out of them. Holding on the Shift key, I can maybe round this up as well, just like we did on top. And now I can do Control and Shift and click. Then do it again. Delete hidden. Let's jump into, let's go into extrude, single poly. It's fine because these are still grouped. Let's just extract these. Let's just give it a little thickness. We'll do something like that. Jump out of the solo mode. Now we have this fun little piece on the bottom, right? And maybe I did it a little too thick, so let me actually go back one. Let me try this again. Let me just expand this something like this, and now I'm going to make my brush kind of large, and let me just shape this a little better. I want to make sure it's still kind of using this strap as well, and I can move this up. And same thing down here. I want to move this down, but I want to keep kind of this strap being used for the bottom as well, right? Obviously. Very cool. Another thing we could do is maybe we want to make it a little more interesting here. We could always go to zModeler, hold on the Alt key, let's make a selection here. And what now I'm going to do is just smooth these here, just a little bit, right? So I'm going to create kind of like a tapered effect. And I'm going to do something like this. And now what I would like to do, I would like to punch a hole through this. So to do this, what I could do is I can go back to zModeler. Now let's just go to extrude, single poly. Let's just make an extrusion. And if you wanted to, you can make a hole all the way through, or you can just make an indentation that just has additional detail there. Maybe it's a little too much, or something like that. All right, I think that looks pretty good. And let's go ahead and zoom out. Let's jump out of our polyframe and take a look. Let's decide if we want to do anything to the actual arm, right? Right now, the arm is sort of just, you know, doesn't have any detail or gloves or anything like that. So if I press Alt, I can click on my arm, and let's just decide if we want to do something to it. If we wanted to create a glove, right? What would be an easy way to create a glove? Well, I can always duplicate this. Now I have two of them. Let's solo it. And to make an arm, let's turn the polyframe, to make a glove, let's turn polyframe on. Let's just delete all the faces that we don't want to be part of the glove, right? So zModeler, polygroup, and let's just do this one. We'll do this loop here. And this is going to be an island. Do Control Shift and click twice, delete it. And that's going to be first step. Second step is going to be switch to poly loop, and let's just decide what kind of glove we want. So maybe I can select this, turn this into an island, and let's just do the same thing with the other fingers as well. Do Control Shift and click to reverse it, and let's go ahead and delete hidden. Now you can see we have something that looks a lot like a glove, which is cool. Let's jump out of the solo and take a look. I think I like this. Let's go to extrude and let's give it some thickness, right? So to do this, all we need is just go to extrude, polygroup all, and let's just pull this out. So now we have this kind of a low poly glove, which is cool. And if you wanted to punch a hole through here, let's go, let's make a selection. Holding down the Alt key, I can just make a selection. So maybe all of this here could be a hole, and maybe even all of this. And you know what? Let's do three rows. Make my brush a bit larger. Hold on the Shift key. Let's make these round. All right. And now hold down over the face, extrude, or let's do Q mesh, single poly, right? Because this is a selection. And let's just pull this through. And the only thing I'm not happy about, I'm just looking at this, I don't like this here, honestly, at all. So let me, I kind of miscalculated this here. All right, and I think that looks a little bit better. Jump out of polyframe. Very nice. Now let's just simply clone this arm with the armor to the other side. So to do this, I'm gonna let me expand my tools. Before we do anything, make sure you save your subtool. And now we need to copy all these pieces, the arm. So I'm just gonna merge all of them together. I'm gonna grab the top one, go to merge, and let's just do a merge down. Now it's one tool. Now I can always check it by flipping it over. Let's flip it over, and let's just do mirror and weld. Now we have two of them. All right, you can decide if you like this, or maybe you want to do more touch-ups, but I'm pretty happy with this. I think that's pretty awesome. The only other thing I would like to do to this character before we do more as far as the textures go in detail is I need to add some boots, right? Let's get rid of these feet and give her boots that kind of match our armor and our, our shoulder pad, right? If you want to do a quick preview, you can always do a quick BPR, see what that looks like. A lot of times the shadow is going to be super strong by default. I like to go to my render, and in here, if you go to shadows, you can just turn down the global shadow strength to like 0.4. And I also like to turn this one on. I say that pretty much in every video. Sharpen, I like to turn this on, and then you can see what that looks like. So you can see the shadows are a little bit lighter, so you can see your model. And then that sharpness one gives you like these sharp edges, which is kind of cool. But let's review the back, make sure we like everything. And all of this obviously is going to be smooth, right? Once you bring it into like, rendering engine or a game engine. So this is just a ZBrush way to display low poly. And all right, so let's go ahead and move on to the next thing, which is going to be the boots. And let's do the boots exactly the same way as we did the arm, right? The armor on the arms. So I'm going to select, let's select our legs. And now let's turn our polyframe on, and let's take a look and see what's going on here. So how do we take these normal looking legs and turn them into, amazing looking sci-fi boots? So I think we have to just decide on kind of the design of this first, right? The first thing I'm going to tell you is that just like before, I don't really want to build two at the same time. So I'm going to do auto groups, and I'm going to delete the left. I usually like to work on the right, so just personal preference. So I'm going to do Control Shift and click twice, and let's do delete hidden. And now we are just left with this one. Turn off active symmetry, just like we did before. And let's just start thinking about this. Now, one thing I would like to do, I'm going to jump out of the perspective view. Let's turn the floor on. And what I would like to do is we have to figure out if we want the foot to be kind of a flat foot, or if we want to make maybe something a little more interesting. Maybe there's like a high heel on the boot, right? If you wanted to do that, you can just grab the move brush and let's just maybe change the shape of the foot. So it gives us a little reference of what that might look like. I'm gonna actually point these toes down and keep this high up. And maybe the boot can have like either a really thick platform, or either way there would be a kind of a more of a slant here for the foot, right? All right, so the first thing I would like to do is get rid of these toes, right? I don't really need the toes for what we're doing. So what would be the best way to do that? So what I could do is I can jump into zModeler and I can just kind of cut off this whole section here by going into, let's go into poly, let's go to delete, and we'll just do delete a loop. Let's delete this loop, and then I'm gonna go to island and I'm just gonna delete all of these faces here. I'm gonna turn my double on, and now what I just need to do, I just need to close this hole, right? So I'm gonna go to, let's click over the edge, let's go to close, and we'll do hole, right? So I'm just gonna click on that. And then I can just smooth this out and grab my move tool and maybe just shape it back into what I need it to be. So I'm just going to do something like this, kind of for the front of the shoe. And I can just go between smoothing this and moving it around. And if I wanted to, I can make this, you know, maybe we'll make the shoe somewhat pointy. I think that totally works. If I want to get rid of this poly group, I can just do auto groups. And that is pretty much perfect. Now, to manage this better or have a little more control, let's separate this into pieces as well. So again, I'm gonna go into poly or zModeler, and I'm going to go to, let's do poly group, we'll do poly loop, and let's just maybe divide or separate this section here from this here. So I'm just gonna do an island, do something like that. And now it's gonna be a little bit easier to manage. We can even separate these, right? We can do Control Shift and click to hide it. Come to split, and let's do a split hidden, and now we have two of them. Let me take that body and move this up. So I know I'm working with these two layers here. All right. Now for the bottom section, I definitely would love to have a much better topology for this. So let's z-remesh this real quick. Go to geometry, z-remesher. Let's just set this to like 0.2, something super low, right? I'm gonna turn adapt off, and I'm gonna do z-remesh. That's gonna give me something like this. All right, and if I try to select it, you can see it's actually a spiral. It's not a loop, right? How do I turn this spiral into a loop? What would be the process for doing that? So essentially what I could do if I wanted to, I can just hold on the Alt key and make a selection of the pieces that I would like to be its own group. So let's just select all of this here, and essentially I'm just trying to separate the sole of the shoe from the rest of it, right? So I'm just gonna grab all of these faces here and just literally just paint them. And I know it's gonna be a spiral, so I don't need these faces. I can just hold on the Alt key to uncheck it. And let's just grab all of these, that's fine. Let's figure out where we want the sole to be. So maybe all of these could be the sole of the shoe, right? So now what I could do is now let's just hover over these faces. Let's go to poly group single, holding down the Alt key. Let's click, hold on the Alt key, and let's just decide on the color just for fun. Doesn't really matter. I'm gonna go with this one. And now what we could do is let's jump back into z-remesher, but this time we'll say keep groups, right? And we'll just keep the super low again, maybe 0.2, that's fine. Keep groups, and I'm just gonna do z-remesh. All right, so now I have something like this, and now I know this is gonna be a perfect loop, not a spiral, right? Because I'm kind of controlling it almost, manually, right? So I think that's much better. And now we have the kind of the sole for the shoe. If I wanted to extract that or maybe smooth it, right? Maybe I want to make sure it's a little more flat. I can always grab something like the dynamic, trim dynamic, or even the polish, make it kind of large and just press this in and kind of flatten this whole bottom area. All right, I can also take these faces and just move them around. We can also make our brush a little bit smaller and maybe smooth this. A few different tricks, right, to get the result I want. Essentially, I'm just looking to get something flat. And now what I could do is I can extrude this, right? So let's go back into zModeler and let's grab extrude. We'll do polygroup all and let's just pull this out. And this is going to be essentially the sole. And now we can take this and let's just also extract the side of it. So I'm going to pull this out, maybe do something like this. Now I would love to pull out the bottom, right? So I'm going to go here and let's go into a side view, grab our move brush, and I would like to kind of do something like this where the toes are actually flat and then the heel or the foot, right, is kind of lifted up. And we can decide if it looks good from all the directions. We'll do something like this. Very nice. Now to create the heel, let's go back into zModeler. Let's just select which one of these would work. So maybe let's make a selection of all of these here. And let's grab, you know what, I'm going to grab all of these. Go to extrude, let's do single poly, and let's just pull these down. All right, and now to fix this, I'm just gonna grab my topology, or you know what, I'm gonna use the move infinite, and let's just literally shape this into what we would like the heel to be. So I'm not gonna worry the bottom. I just wanna go past the floor and just make it, you know, something that makes sense. Maybe something like that. Again, just watch the floor, right? And just make sure it makes sense all the way around. And now to cut this up, what I can do is I can do Control Shift. I can just grab my knife tool and literally just chop this off. Be pretty perfect. I just want to make sure it's aligned with the bottom of the foot. I kind of like it. I think it's great. Let's go ahead and see how this is looking. So now I have this kind of a cool bottom part of the foot. I think it's nice. Now let's go ahead and work on the top part of the boot. So I'm gonna go to this piece here, and let's take a look at this. So I think one of the things I would like to do right away is definitely change the resolution of this as well, and just dial it down. So let's jump back into geometry, Z remesher. Let's just simply say half, and do Z remesh. And I'm going to do it again and maybe again, just really trying to simplify the shape so I can have a little more control over it, right? I think something like that is pretty cool. And now let's work with this. Now let's turn this into something a little bit thicker and maybe something a little more impressive, right? To give it some thickness, I can just go to zModeler and I can do extrude. Let's do polygroup all, and let's just make this much thicker. Let's grab our move brush and let's jump out of the perspective view. And you know what? I'm actually going to continue using my move infinite. And let's just start maybe shaping this into something a little more interesting, right? And I know that the inside of this cylinder, if I solo it, it has its own all the extra faces. I could do Control Shift and let's click on the on this part and then click on it again to hide it, and just do delete hidden. We don't really need those, right? Jump out of the solo and take a look. I don't really need any of those faces. Let's decide how we want maybe the top of the boot to look. Go back into move, and let's just maybe shape this into something. To seal this part up, what I could do is I can go to zModeler. Let's grab something like the inset. And let's switch this to polygroup all, and let's just do an inset right here. So we'll do something like that. Let's go to extrude, and we can push this down just to add a little more detail. To fix the leg, I can do Alt and click on the leg. I can grab my move brush, make sure I'm in symmetry, and I can just bring this down, right? Very cool. Let's do Alt click on the boot. Let's continue with our boot. All right, let's select all of these. Let's select all of these faces here. I'm just gonna make a selection going all the way around. Holding down the Shift key, I can smooth this out and kind of round this up a little. And now to push this in, I'm just gonna go to Extrude, Polygroup All, and let's just push this in, or we can pull it out, whatever you want. I think I'm gonna press mine in. I would love a little detail in the front, so let's do this again. Let's just do something like this. Maybe there's like a little extrusion here, holding down the Shift key. I'm gonna smooth this up. All right, I would love to add some additional detail here. This feels a little bit weak to me. Okay, so the next thing I would love to make is some kind of a large knee pad. So to do that, let's just do something as simple as insert a box. And once we insert the box, I definitely need to make it a little bit smaller. And I would love to initialize this. So let's go to initialize. And in here, let's switch this to 1 by 1 by 1 and just do a cube. And we can make this a little bit smaller, jump out of the perspective view and just put it into position. And this is going to be the place where we want our knee pad to be. So we can decide on the thickness and the height, and essentially somewhere around here, right? Something like that. And I can also put it into position. I can also, if I needed to, rotate it a little bit and get it looking like a knee pad. All right, so next let's jump into zModeler. Let's hover over an edge and do an insert. And we'll just do a, I'm gonna do a single loop and just do something like this. Now to scale it, I'm gonna go to scale and do edge loop complete. Let me just scale this whole loop out. So we'll do something like that. We can take this one and scale this one in. And let's do the same thing here. All right, so it's starting to look like a knee pad, right? I'm gonna hover over this face, go to bevel, and let's just bevel this here. I can go into a solo mode, and we can also hold down the Alt key and just make a selection here. Press spacebar. Let's go to inset, polygroup all. Let's just make an inset. And then spacebar, go to extrude, and let's just push this in. If we want to bevel this, we can hover over an edge and bevel this here. If you want to make that longer, I can go to scale and just maybe scale this up. If we wanted to bend it, let's go to this gear, go to bend curve, and what we could do is we could just start bending this a little bit. Now I'm just using 3 points, that's fine. Go back to the gear and say accept, and now we have this nice little bend. Let's see if we like that. It feels like it definitely needs some kind of a strap, right, connecting to the boot. How do we do that? I'm gonna go back into solo mode, polyframe. Let's create a strap around these two pieces. So what I could do is I can just go to, let's go to extrude, let's go single poly, let's just pull these out. I'm gonna pull this one and this one. I would love to inset this here actually. Let's inset both of these, and let's also extrude them as well. Let's go to extrude, we'll do polygroup all, and let's just push these in. Add a little more detail. Alright, so now my intention is to create a strap that's coming out of here and going around the boot. So how do we do that? So let's go back into Solo, Polyframe. I'm gonna hover over face, let's do another inset. We'll do something like this and then click to repeat it on this side. Hover over this face, go to delete, and let's just delete both of these faces here. And now to make an arc or a loop, all you need to do is just hover over an edge, press spacebar, and go to bridge. Let's go to bridge and let's just say 2 holes. And we can decide if we want a spline, a circle. I think I'm going to do a circle. And now all I need to do is just click on this edge and click on this edge and then start dragging. And that's going to create a circle. If you drag up or down, you can control the resolution. So I'll do something that makes sense. How about we'll do something like this? I think that's pretty cool. Now it's just to adjust this, right? To adjust this, let's jump out of the solo mode, and we can always go to transparency mode, grab our move brush, and let's just simply pull this out to encompass the leg, right? The whole leg. I'm going to jump out of the transparency mode and let's just adjust this so it makes sense. Alright, if you wanted to add additional geometry or edges, you can always go to zModeler. Let's hover over an edge that we need more resolution on, and you can always just bevel these. You can just do something like that, and that's going to expand each one. Anywhere where you feel like the resolution is too low, you can always add additional edge loops by just simply using a bevel, right? A cool little trick. And you can kind of manually control and see what makes sense. Let's go ahead and take a look and see if we like it. To get this on the other side, well, before we do, I think it would be also cool if maybe we inserted a couple IMM brushes. Let's go to insert, let's go to IMM, let's go to steam gears, press M. Let's see if we can grab something that's kind of cool. I like this one, so I'm gonna do this rivet 4. And let me just insert a few different rivets. So you can see adding extra details or inserting IMM items is actually a really cool idea, and very quickly you can add something that looks pretty awesome. Now to get this to the other side, all I need to do is just go to Subtools, and we have this. Let me expand this. We have our boot, right? The bottom part. We have the top part of the boot and then the knee pad. So what I'm going to do is just simply merge these together. I'm going to do merge down, and now we can always test it, right? Make sure it's good, and then flip it to the left and just do a mirror and weld. And now we have 2 of them, right? As the final step for the design of the character, I think it would be really awesome if we broke some of the symmetry. Now, as I'm looking at this character, she does look really symmetrical, right? Everything is a copy of left and right. To throw off the symmetry, one of the things that I try to do is the hair, right? The hair is not symmetrical, you can see that. So the eye kind of looks at that, and maybe, that makes it look a little bit better. But the other thing we could do is maybe, let's throw in some kind of a cloth on the side here, and that's also going to kind of throw off the symmetry. So how do we do something like that? If you wanted to add maybe an additional piece of cloth just hanging from her waist or something like that. The way we could do that is we could simply insert a sphere. Let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to say insert not a sphere, I'm sorry, a cylinder. And I'm going to size it down. I'll just make it something like this. And what I'm going to do next is I would like to delete the top and the bottom faces. But when you insert a cylinder, you could see it's coming in as one polygroup, right? Everything is just one group. So what I could do is I could go to polygroups and I can click on something called, let's see, groups by normals. And it's currently set to 45 degrees, right? Or I'm not sure if it's degrees or not. I think it's degrees. If you say groups by normals and just click on it, you can see that it's now going to separate the top and the bottom. That's what I want. So now I can do Control Shift and click on the middle piece, and that's going to hide those other ones. Now I can delete the hidden, and now I'm left with something like this. All right, so now how do I turn this into something that looks a little more like cloth, right? To do that, what I could do is let's jump out of the perspective view, and I'm going to grab my move. Let's just figure out where we want this to lay. So maybe something like this. If I wanted to, I can even angle this a little, just a little bit, maybe do something like that. And now we can sculpt it a little more too. So I'm going to grab my move. And you know what? I'm actually going to grab my infinity brush. Now let's just change this shape a little more, right? So I want to maintain all of this here so you could still see all of our hard work that we did for modeling. So maybe we'll do that. And then there's this cloth is just hanging on the side, you know, something like that. Let me go to move and let's just mess this up a little more. And I'm not going to worry about the cloth grabbing the body yet, and we can also turn double on. A couple things I want to mention. One is the fact that I would like to keep it one-sided. So there's really no reason why you would want to add thickness to something like this, because in the game engine you could just do two-sided or double-sided material, and that is going to show the inside part of the cloth anyways, right? So there's really no reason why we want to add, you know, thickness to this, which also means when you rig this and this is animated, you're not going to have things geometry going through itself, right? So it's just smarter for cloth to be single-sided, right? Like a cape or something like that. So let's do something like this. And if I wanted to, I can also grab my move. Let me turn my AccuCurve on. Let's just maybe mess this up a little more. We'll just maybe do something a little more organic looking. Just pull some of these out. And alright, so it looks a little more like cloth. And we can add folds and stuff to this as well. Alright, so now what I would like to do, I definitely want to change the topology of this, right? So it kind of matches the shape a little better. So for that, I'm going to jump into Geometry, Z-Remesher, and in here, I can leave the Adapt on. I'm going to switch this way down. Let's do 0.5. I'm keeping this character as kind of a low poly version. So let's do 0.5, and let's just do symmetries off, and let's just do Z-Remesh. Alright, that's going to give me something like this. That's a little bit better as far as the topology for the cloth. And let's do half. Alright, and I think that is what I was looking for. So I'm going to go, I'm going to stay here. So right now this is about, you can see it's 306 points or 264 polygons, right? Because some of these are tries, which is fine. And now, how do I take this and make this material kind of hug the body? So to do this, what I could do is I can use dynamics here in ZBrush. So let me do a couple things. First, I'm going to save my tool. Good practice. I'm going to take this cloth and I'm going to bring it down to be next to the body. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to press Shift and click to hide everything. And all I want is just the cloth and the body, right? Those are the only two I want to see. Now with the cloth layer selected and the body layer just simply being active or visible, let's go into dynamics and let's just check this out. So I'm going to turn on contract, and I'm going to turn on collision volume, right? The collision volume is going to tell ZBrush to use the body layer or the visible layer, or any visible layers that you have activated will be used as a collision. And then the layer that is selected is the layer that will be used as the dynamic, right? So keep in mind, I turned off gravity, right? And I also don't have floor collision on. So that's pretty much it. Let's just run the simulation. And you can see I'm going to run it and I'm going to stop it. And what that's going to do is it's going to hug the body a little tighter. And I can just keep going. Right, now I have something like this. And now what I can do from here is I can manually adjust it, right? So if you don't like how something turned out, just do Control-Z and rerun the simulation. But I'm actually happy with this. I think that's pretty cool. I would like to turn on all of my other layers. And now I'm going to grab my move. And let me just shimmy this around so it looks like it's actually fitting on the body a little better. Now the interesting thing about smoothing it using the, keep in mind we still have the smooth groups brush selected or activated, right? Now the nice thing about that is that as you smooth this out, you can see the edges are sort of staying in place. Normally when you have the smooth, right, all of these edges are going to get messed up. But using it this way, you can see my edges are kind of maintaining their position, which I kind of like, and I'm using that to my advantage, right? So now I can just manually, very carefully, move this into maybe a better position. If you make your brush a little bit smaller, you can actually address each vertex individually and just kind of make something that feels right. All right, I think that's pretty good. And if we turn that off, and we can also, of course, let's turn off the polyframe and let's take a look at this character. I think that is pretty cool. And of course we can make this different length if you want to make this longer or shorter. Maybe I can make this here a little longer. Just pull this down. Do something like that. All right, so now I have this cloth and you can see how it's kind of adding to the design a little bit. And of course you can decide how you like it or where you want it. You can hang it higher, lower, whatever you like. But I think something like this is pretty cool. And then if we bring this into either Substance Painter or create an HD version here in zBrush, we can add additional detail like the folds and all of that stuff that then can be baked into the normal map, right? But the topology of the cloth is going to be this, right? So we don't really want to change this. And of course, if you wanted to, you can optimize this further by just going to zModeler. And if you have too many edges or too few, you can always go to delete, and you can manually delete edges if you want this to be maybe a little lower resolution. You could do that. If you needed to add additional edges, maybe you don't have enough geometry, you can always do insert and then just do a single or multiple, but a single one will allow you to add additional loops. So you have full control over the topology of this, right? But in my case, I think something like this is pretty much perfect. I'm kind of liking this. All right, so now we are officially done modeling, and I feel satisfied with the fact that this is throwing off the symmetry, right? I think that's pretty cool. Let's go ahead and render our character. Another thing you could do that I suggest strongly is changing the material throughout your sculpting. So maybe in this case, I can switch it to white. And a lot of times when you switch the material, you can see your shapes in different light or different, different way. And a lot of times that's very helpful as well. All right. So what would be the next step? How do we move from here to the next step? The next step would be to combine this mesh into one UV sheet. So we want to create UVs for this, and essentially merging all of these pieces together into one solid mesh, right? And then unwrapping it. So there's a couple different ways of doing it. If you are doing it quickly and you don't have a lot of subtools, a lot of times what you could do is you could just automatically merge all of these together into one, and then just doing you can do automatic UVs here in zBrush, and that's pretty much it, right? That's very fast. And then there's a more manual way where you can just take the character, export it out into Maya, and then piece by piece unwrap each element, which could take a very long time. And you can manually set up your UVs and make them beautiful and then bring them into Substance Painter for painting. So that would be in one way. And then there's the middle way, and that's the one that I kind of like, and a lot of times I take. Now the middle way between the automatic and manual is unwrapping each one individually automatically here in zBrush, and then bringing it into Maya and manually placing the UVs in the UV sheet. So let me show you a couple different ones. Let me show you the automatic one, because that's going to be probably the one used by most people that watch this video. And to do that, so I'm going to again save my work. To make it automatic, all you need to do is just merge it together. So if I go to merge, I could say merge visible, right? Now, right now you can see I have all these different layers, which technically I should have named, and that would have been a good practice. So you can click on each layer and name it, and you always want to save your version that is, beautifully named and organized, your subtool. So this is going to be hair. So you always want to have this layered version, right? And then what you can do is you can, once you're done, you can say merge visible. When I click merge visible, it looks like nothing happened, right? But zBrush created something else called merged, and it just grabbed one that whatever I had selected, so it said merge hair. But it created another model. If I click on it, you can see that now all the layers are gone and everything is just kind of merged into one. So I can, call this character or whatever, right? Now, what is the difference? Now, the difference is now all of these pieces are in one mesh, right? And if we wanted to, we can attempt to use zBrush automatic UVs here to unwrap all of this automatically. And before you do that, I would also, instead of pressing save, right, because you don't want to override your other subtool, say save as, or actually, you know what, it's not going to override it because I just renamed it. So if I say save, it's going to ask me what is the name of this. I'm going to say save, and you can see that here. And instead of alien cyborg, I usually call this one underscore merged, and this way I have another subtool, right? So I have two tools. I have one that's merged and one that's layered. So really important, please keep track of both, because if you ever want to go back and change something, you usually want to go to the origin, right? All right, I'm going to go to merged, and now in here, let's attempt to just unwrap this all at once automatically. So I can go to Z plugins, I can go to UV master. I'm going to turn off symmetry, and I'm going to leave polygroups on, right? I want to leave polygroups on because all of my meshes have been separated by polygroups, right? That was the whole point of us modeling it this way. And now what we could do is we could just say unwrap. All right, so it's going to take a few seconds, but now the cool thing is if you say flatten, you can see that all of your pieces have been automatically unwrapped. So that's pretty much the end of your UV effort if you wanted it to be, right? So if this is like a background character somewhere, or maybe you're making a crowd of a bunch of these, this is totally fine. You can say unflatten, bring it into Substance Painter and start painting it, and you have your UVs and the character's done, and that's great. Now, if this is a main hero and you want a little more quality, right? Maybe you're selling this character, or maybe this is like the main hero of your game. You probably most likely don't want to do this. That doesn't look appealing or very professional. This looks like an automatic, job, right? So let me show you a different way. Let's take a look at the, I call it the middle way. The middle way would be, again, between manual and automatic. So to do it that way, I'm just gonna go ahead and delete this one. And I'm gonna go back to my layered one, all right? Now in here, we have all these pieces individually. And so now what I could do is I can select one, and you know what, we can even hide the rest of them so we can talk about each one. So let's press F to zoom in on the mask. turn the polyframe on, and take a close look, right? All right, now let's talk about each piece individually. If I turn on my head, right, you can see that, and the eyes, of course, you can see that all of these meshes are, they have to make sense, right? So this mask one, if I solo it, there's really no reason for these faces to exist, right? So that's not very, it's completely unnecessary. It's kind of useless because it's behind the eyeballs. We deleted the inner shelf already, right? All of this inside stuff is gone. You just have the outer shelf with the border. So that's good. But all of these faces here, right here, and the inside the eyes, you know, if you want to do really high quality work, you want to clean this up. How would you do that? Well, you can do it quickly. You can just grab zModeler, go to delete, and let's just do single poly, for example. And I can just, you know, manually delete it this way. I could have turned on, oh, I do have active symmetry on, so it's going to do it on both sides, which is great, right? And now this is much better. All right, I'm not sure, we probably don't want to delete these inside ones, right? Because that's going to be actually seen. If I jump out of solo and have the face on, you can see, you could still see those inside polygons. So I don't want to delete those, so those are important, right? I'm going to keep these. And that's the process. You have to take each piece and think about it and kind of evaluate it, and then adjust, or you know, adjust the topology or adjust your UVs based on each piece. So you can fast forward through this part, or let's just dive in and just quickly clean this up. Now this loop, for example, here, I can go to, let's do delete, and let's just maybe delete. Now to clean this up, I can't really do a loop because this is a spiral. So what I could do is I can just do single poly, make sure my active symmetry is on, and I could just very quickly click on, you know, a few of these to just get rid of them, right? I don't need them. No one's gonna ever see them. They're not visible. Just be mindful not to insert edges or something like that, but you can just clean this up. Another way you could do it, of course, is you could just hover over a face, hold on the Alt key, and just make a selection. And maybe that's actually even easier and faster. So make a selection. I can even probably grab, let's grab all of these, just something like that. And I'm not going to spend too much time on this, right? Obviously, because this is a tutorial, but I just want to show you kind of the basics. So let's say I did this, and let's say I want to get rid of it. So I can, of course, I'm already on single poly, and anything that is grouped is a single poly. So I just click on it and get rid of it. And now this is a much better job for a mask, right? Jump out of the solo mode. Now let's just unwrap this by itself. So what I could do is let me hide the eyes and the face. All right, and so now what I could do is I can go back into my UV master. I'm gonna leave my poly groups on, right? And let's just do symmetry, that's fine. And let's do unwrap. Could do flatten. And now we can take a look and see what is actually happening. So this is how zBrush automatically unwrapped our mask. And you can decide if you like that, or maybe you want to do something else. If you want to do something else, let's do unflatten. I think what we should do is, let's go ahead and do auto groups. We'll group everything into one piece. All right, so now it's one group. Now let's see how it's looking if we go ahead and do unwrap as one group instead of using many different polygroups. So I'm going to say unwrap, and let's go back into flatten. And now we have something like this. And this is, I think, maybe a little bit better. We can always do unflatten, and we can do check seams to see where zBrush put the seams. And we also have full control over where the seams are. We could actually specify where the seams are going to go using creased edges, or we have something called enable control painting, right? So there's a couple different methods, but I think for this case, to keep it nice and speedy, I think this is fine. So let's go ahead and move on to the next piece. So the next piece is going to be the head. And let's just talk about the head. Now with the head, same thing, right? We're gonna have the eyeballs inside there. And we don't really need all this extra geometry, right? So let's delete that as well. So to do this, I'm gonna go to my zModeler and let's just say delete. Let's do a loop, and I can see that this is a loop. So I'm gonna turn on active symmetry and just simply click on the loop, and you can see there's like this orange thing, right? Orange line. I'm gonna make sure I delete all of that. And I can even probably delete these as well. That's pretty good. Let's go to island and delete this guy here. All right, we don't need any of that. I'm also seeing that there's a mouth pocket inside this character, right? So how do we probably don't need all that geometry in there as well, right? How can we get rid of all that inside geometry that's not going to be seen by the camera? So the easiest way to do it, you can just do quick mask. Then you can just Control and W, Control Shift and click twice, and now we can see inside this little pocket. Let's come in here and let's just delete these faces. So again, zModeler, I'm gonna make sure I am in poly loop. Let's just create a, just find a loop that is not a spiral, so maybe like this. I can grab this island, delete this island, and all of these are, I think these are going to be an actual spiral, right? So if I do a poly loop, it's not going to work. So what I need to do is just switch it to single poly. And let's just manually delete all the other ones, that extra ones that are just here that we don't really need. And very quickly we can clean this up. Keep in mind, if you want to do a little quicker, you can always hold on the Alt key and just simply make a selection. Now keep in mind, when I want to rotate something, I can't click inside of the mesh, right? I don't want to mess it up. So there's this border all the way around your scene. If you go outside the border, it's not going to use the mesh or click on the mesh. It's going to use the rotation. So whenever you zoomed in really up close to something, you can always use this to navigate your scene or rotate something. So very useful. So at this point, I just want to delete single poly and just click on to clean this up. Let's go ahead and zoom out and take a look. To bring everything back, I can just Control Shift and click, and then I can do auto groups to regroup everything. And now I have the eyes and the mouth, emptied out. Now the mouth is still open a little bit. We can leave that, or if you want to put some teeth in. Whatever you want, but in my case, I think I would like to close this by let me just actually inflate this a little more. And I don't really want any of the spaces there. So I think that is a little bit better. All right, I think that's perfect. Let's jump into unwrap, and this is going to be, again, a single poly loop, so poly groups don't even need to be on, but I'm going to use symmetry because this is symmetrical, and just do unwrap. And let's just do a flatten, and you can see what that looks like. Now this is definitely not what I want, so I'm going to do unflatten. Alright, so how do we control our seam? To control our seam, what we could do is we can go to zModeler, and what we can do is we can manually create a seam. So let's just go to zModeler, let's hover over a point and go to crease, shortest path, and let's just start clicking on on the path that we want to use as a seam. So I want to have all of this come all the way up here, and for the ears, I wouldn't mind if the seam was maybe up here on the top of the head. Again, it's just a preference. You can just decide what works for you, but I'm just gonna go all the way up the ear and all the way over here. Alright, so now I have a seam line coming here, and I have a seam line on the back of the head, but I don't really have anything in front, right? And that is what I want. So now to use the seam to unwrap this, what I need to do is I need to go to UV map, and in here under UV map, make sure you have your crease unwrap open. Just make sure your creased edges is on, and just do unwrap. And now if you do a flatten, you can see that you have a much different layout for the face, and this is much better for painting or as far as the facial layout goes. All right, I'm happy with this. I'm going to do unflatten. And now this is done. And now we did the mask, we did the face. Let's go ahead and do the hair next. These are already in their own polygroups. You can say auto groups if you need to. I can see that this is also smooth, so let me make sure my dynamics are off. I don't really need it on right now. And for this, I'm just going to do polygroups, turn off symmetry, and let's just do unwrap and do a flatten. And this is going to be the hair unwrap. All of these are great, except this is kind of strange. I don't really like these. So let's see if we can unflatten and take a look and figure out why, right? Let me try to go to UV map, and I can see that this brush that we use, the IMM brush, actually has creases already. So I'm just going to use creased edges to unwrap, and let me see if that's a little bit better. I'm going to do flatten, and I think that's a little bit better, right? I think this could work. I'm going to do unflatten, and we can even touch this up in Maya if we wanted to, but I think I'm going to go with that. That's fine. Let's move on to the next piece. The next piece is going to be this strap, right? Now the strap is going to have inner geometry again, right? That you're not going to see. So let's just quickly delete that by I'm going to go to delete. Let's do single poly. Let's just paint all of this right here, and let's just delete all these. Turn double on, and I think I also don't need this guy and this guy. All right, I think that's much better, and I'm not even sure if I need these here. If I turn the mask on, I can take a look. Yeah, you could still see that geometry there. Okay, I'm gonna leave that. So next, I'm gonna go to unwrap. Let's just do unwrap on this, and do a flatten. And you can see that's gonna give me many different pieces. I don't really want that. Let's just do auto group, and let's do unwrap, flatten. I think that's a little bit better, right? So it just has to make sense. We can maybe, if we wanted to, clean this up in Maya as well. I'm gonna do unflatten. So you see what I'm doing? I'm individually going through each piece instead of just having the ZBrush decide everything automatically, right? So it's kind of I'm still using automatic tools, but I'm kind of guiding them a little more, with a little more precision. That's the whole point of this UV process. All right, I'm going to click on the eyeballs. The eyeballs are definitely way too high for what this is. We need a low poly eyeballs. So to get that going, I'm going to go to geometry. Let's go ahead and go to zRemesher. I'm going to turn adapt off. I'm going to switch this to like 0.5, really low. Turn active symmetry on because I have 2 of them. And let me just do a quick zRemesh. And we can do half. And I think that's pretty much perfect, right? The only thing that I'm going to bring up again is the fact that we don't need the back of these spheres. So if I solo these, you can see I have all this extra stuff that I don't really need, right? So let's do delete a loop, and let's just delete maybe everything back here. And it's not letting me delete. I'm not really sure why. That's fine. Sometimes you just have these little ZBrush things that don't really make sense, but it's okay. Just quickly pivot and deal with it. So now what I'm going to do is make a selection here. I think that's pretty good. I'm going to jump out of solo and make sure that everything makes sense. Make sure I didn't delete any extra pieces that maybe I need. If I needed to touch up anything here, I can still do that too. All right, very nice. Let's go ahead and unwrap these. I'm going to go to, let me hide the head, go to polygroups, that's fine, doesn't really matter. And let's just do unwrap, flatten. And so these are going to be the 2 eyeballs, which is great. Moving down the list, the next one is going to be our arms. All right, so in this situation, you have 2 arms, right? A lot of times you might not want to have a double UV space occupied by both arms. So you could just delete one, unwrap the other one, and then copy the arm over, and this way they'll be the UVs would be, you know, on top of each other, right? Not taking double the space. So there's the pros and cons to that. The pros is that the UV space is smaller and you can have higher resolution. The downside to that is that everything is going to be symmetrical. So if you add, you know, a dent here, or maybe you want to put a number here, like number 12 or whatever, right? If you put any number on here, it's going to automatically, because the UVs are overlapping, it will automatically appear on the other side. So it's totally your decision if you want to overlap your UVs or not. In our case, I'm wondering if I could just get away with just doing polygroups unwrap and just see what it gives me, right? I'm just gonna do that. Now it does have some overlapping geometry, right? Like the geometry under the gloves, the hand should be cleaned up and deleted, but I'm trying to kind of move quickly and not, you know, I already showed you guys how to clean things up. Like these straps inside here there's a geometry gonna be inner geometry that should be deleted. All of that stuff, but I want to see if I can speed this up by just doing unwrap. And let's do a flatten, and now I have something like this. So it's a little bit messy, but I think I'm going to leave it just for the sake of speed, because it's going to take me a long time to go through this and clean this up. But if you wanted to, of course, I strongly suggest you do. And let's just move on. So the next thing is going to be these, same thing. I don't really want to spend too much time on this, so I'm going to do unwrap. Let's do a flatten. We can see what that looks like. There's a lot of different pieces, and I think that's fine. If you wanted to have a different result, you can always do auto groups and do unwrap again and see if you have maybe something better and cleaner. I honestly like this better. That's great. And moving on to the body. Now the body has different mini polygroups as well. Let's see if we can use this to our advantage. Do unwrap, do flatten, and this looks a little, I think a little too much, right? I don't really need any of that. So let me do auto group. I'm going to turn it into 1, and we can decide if we want to do a seam or if we want to let ZBrush do it. Let's try and see what it gives us. It's going to give us something like this, and if we wanted to see where it put the seams, it puts it on the side, and it actually did a decent job hiding it from the front and the back, right? So honestly, I actually don't mind how this is working. I don't think it's going to be visible in Substance Painter, so I'm going to go with this. That's fine. Very nice. Let's go to the next one. This is going to be our cloth. That's going to be really easy. Just unwrap, flatten, unflatten. Next is the boots. Same thing with the boots. Let me just auto group these and do polygroups unwrap. Let's jump into a flatten, take a look. I think this is pretty interesting. I don't really know what all these little pieces are. I might have to clean this up in Maya, but again, it gets me about 80% there for now. Unflatten, check UVs, and honestly, this probably is going to be redone in Maya, but for the sake of speed, let's just move on, right? So I'm going to leave this here, and now since we have all the pieces unwrapped, right, individually, the next step that I usually do in my own process is I would take all of these. I would not merge this, but I would export. Let's go and do Shift and unhide. Now, since I know each piece is unwrapped individually, I would export this out to Maya as an FBX with all the pieces separate, and then in Maya create one UV sheet with all of the UVs organized and cleaned up. And essentially that would be the second step. So let me show you how that's done. All right, so next I'm going to jump into Maya, but anyone who uses other programs, Blender, 3D Studio Max, you know, the process is very similar, right? You just use different tools and they are located in different places, but essentially the workflow is exactly the same. So I'm using Maya, but you know, you could follow this tutorial from this point on, even into Blender if you wanted to. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and say export, right? So I'm going to export this model as an FBX. So I'm going to say save, and the next thing that I'm presented with is this panel, right? This box with a few options, and they are, I have selected, visible, or all. I definitely want to say all because I want to take all of these pieces and bring them with the FBX, right? I'm going to switch this to bin. That's fine. That doesn't really matter because we're not doing vertex colors. We're just simply bringing our mesh over to fix the UVs or organize the UVs. And I am going to leave everything just as is and just say OK. All right, once the export finishes, let's go ahead and jump into Maya. Here I'm in Maya. I'm going to go ahead and do file import. Let's find our FBX file and just say import. All right, and just like we saw in zBrush, we have all of our tools or all the layers, right? So they're just different meshes here in Maya. And our character is really small, really tiny because of the units, the units difference between zBrush and Maya. And usually you will have this issue as well. What I'm going to do is I'm going to select all the pieces. I'm going to press Ctrl G to group them all. And let's just grab our scale and just make the character much larger, something that works with these units a little bit better. All right, I'm going to press spacebar, go into my quad view here. I'm going to do Shift A, and I'm just going to simply take the character and move it up. Put it right on the floor. Let's go hover over this window here, press spacebar to go into it. And now we have something like this. One of the things that I like to do in Maya always, I turn the wireframe on just so I can see my topology a little bit better. And here you can also see the total poly count, right? So at this point, the character is about 27,000 faces, right? And that gives us about 55,000 tries. So I would say this is kind of a low to mid-level character. And of course, you can optimize it much more as well. All right, so let's continue. So the next thing I'm going to do is let's kind of revisit all of our pieces one by one. So I'm going to jump into the UV editor, and in here let's just start organizing things, right? So one of the things I could do is let me grab all of these here. I'm going to press W and just move them off to the side, and essentially right here, this square right here is 0 to 1 space, right? This is going to be our UV sheet that is going to be the final one. Everything else right here is just a workspace. Think of it that way. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take all the pieces and kind of put them in on one UV sheet, and then we can start organizing and scaling them and maybe adjusting anything we need. So essentially cleanup. That's what I'm doing, right? So once this is done, let's go ahead and I'm just going to go from top to bottom. So I'm going to grab these guys. Now, if I wanted to see them all at once, I can select them all, and you can see what I've done, right? I just kind of moved them into their own little squares just so I could see them all. And at this point now, since I know they're not overlapping and I can begin to organize them, I no longer have any use for them to be separate. So I'm going to go ahead and merge them all together. So I'm going to click on this button here to merge the character into one piece. And as soon as I do, you can see only one mesh remains. So I'm going to take this group and press delete. All right, next thing I'm going to do is obviously select my character. Let's go ahead and clear our history. Make sure we delete any useless information. I'm going to double click on it, and I'm going to just say character. All right, very cool. So now we have one mesh with all the UVs on in the same UV space, and now we just have to take all the pieces, organize them into this 0 to 1 space. So let's go ahead and do that. The first thing we could do is just simply review and see if anything needs to be adjusted or fixed from zBrush. If you zoom in on any of the pieces, you can see if anything that requires attention. For example, maybe I don't know what this little piece here is. If I double click on it, I can then look in Maya and see where that is. So if I zoom in, I can always click on isolate to figure out where that is. So it's right in here. And honestly, it looks like it's nothing I need. I can't even see this piece. So I'm going to jump out of isolate. And if I wanted to just double check and really make sure, I can always click on the X-ray button. You can see all of that, that piece is right in there, right? So I don't really need this. So to be honest with you, I can even just press delete. So I'm gonna get rid of it from my UV sheet and the topology as well. I don't really need that. And let's see if there's any other pieces that need our attention. These are our eyes. We could also click on this button here to check our UVs and make sure we don't have anything strange or anything stretched. Normally what you're looking for is you want to make sure that the grid is evenly spaced and everything is somewhat a square, right? You don't have anything super stretched and ugly and terrible. So this right here is a good test to see if everything looks good. You can also see where the seams are. And for example, right in here, there's an issue right here, right? I can see that this is doesn't look right. So if I jump out of my UVs and let me just select this piece here, I can figure out where that is. So I can see on my UV as I select this, this has an issue, right? So let me hold down the shift key and select both of them. And now what I can do is go to UVs, let's do a planar, and let's just simply project it from the top. And now what I could do is I can just unfold them. Or actually, let's project it from the front. Maybe that's a little bit better. And let's go ahead and unfold these. Once they're unfolded, I can move them out of the way. And if I turn this button back on, you can see what that looks like, right? So now these UVs have been fixed, right? So now it's not stretchy. It's actually pretty perfect, right? So that's really important. Just make sure that all of this makes sense. You can also see the density of different pieces. Like this one is different size squares than everything else, right? That's going to be your density. We can take a look at this in 1 minute, but I just want to show you kind of the good way to preview and check your UVs, make sure everything is unwrapped correctly, right? Let's say I'm happy with this. Let me jump out of this mode. And let's say we are, we're good to go, right? How do we put all of these pieces, there's so many, inside this 0 to 1 space, right? So what we could do is we could first, again, check the density on all the pieces. If I double click on one of these, it doesn't really matter which one, but let's double click on this one. And in here under tools, under UV toolkit, and by the way, if you don't see UV toolkit, you go, if you don't see this, just go to tools and right here you should see view or hide your toolkit, right? Mine is right here. And I just dragged it inside my UV editor, so it's kind of it's parked inside the same window. You can just drag these around and they kind of snap together. So that's what I did here. And now what I could do is I go into tools. In here there's something called textile density. If I say get, right, I can see that this right here is set to 6.9. So now what I could do is I can attempt to select them all, or I can do them, section by section. I'm not sure if your Maya can compute all these different pieces. It depends on the speed of your computer. But in this case, I know that this is 6.9. So I can grab, for example, all of these pieces here. And let me do, let's just set them, let's set the same number. All right, and you can see that they change in size, right? And what that is doing is it's actually adjusting the resolution for each piece. And I know right now it looks like a mess, and that's okay. Again, you could try to do them all at once, but sometimes it doesn't work. Let's try to grab all of these, and let's do a set. All right, very cool. I'm gonna press W. I'm gonna move this aside, and I see a few pieces here that I'm not really 100% sure what they are. We can clean them up in a minute. All right, so once you change the density, the next thing we need to do is we need to take all of these pieces and we need to shove them inside the 0 to 1 space. So to do that, I'm just gonna select everything, go to modify, go to layout, click on options. And in here, I'm just gonna do, let's just see what's going on here. So I'm gonna leave translate shells, rotate shells, all that is all great. I don't really want to stack anything because I don't want overlap UVs. So that's, you know, I'm going to leave that unchecked. And fix non-manifold geometry, that's fine. And then the shell padding, we can leave it on 5, or you can increase this a little more. Texture map size, that doesn't really matter. And let's just do apply. All right, and you can see what Maya's done, right? So Maya will automatically take each single piece and place it into this 0 to 1 space, which is really beautiful because manually placing these into this space would be pretty much a nightmare, right? And we can figure out what some of these strange issues are, like the dots. But the cool thing about this is also if you turn on your checker map and come look at your character again, you can see that all of the checkers are going to be exactly the same size. So the density, right, of all the pieces is exactly the same, which means when you are painting your textures, you can be certain that everything is going to be the same resolution. Another thing that I'm seeing is these strange gray things or shading. To fix that, what I could do is I can select my character, go to Mesh Display, and let me just do Unlock Normals, and that's going to fix all of those strange shading issues. Okay, and let's see what else we got. So, all right, so I spent a few more minutes cleaning this up, and this is what I have. It's probably not the best UVs in the world, but it's gonna be, I think, good enough for what I'm doing, right? So I tried to also increase the eyes. All right, so once you clean this up and you got your UVs to a decent point, one of the things that I suggest you do before you move on to the next stage is do this. Select all of your UVs and then go to select and then click on this button called overlapping. Once you click on it, it's going to show you the quality of your UVs, right? So it's going to show you or select pieces of the geometry or topology or faces that are overlapping. So make sure that this is clean and you don't have too much overlapping. For me, I have a couple issues here. So if I look at this area right here, if I double click on it, it's going to be these shoulder pads, and the overlapping part is just going to be this piece there with the shoulder. I'm totally fine with that. The other ones were, let me go back and take a look. The other ones were these right here. So if I double click on that and take a look, that's going to be these back pieces, and they're overlapping with, again, with the shoulder. So I'm totally fine with that as well. Just make sure that you don't have anything weird or you know, overlapping too much. And then finally, once again, make sure you click on this checker button, and you really want to make sure that this looks good and you don't have too many issues, right? Everything is kind of the same size. You could see all my square and all the grids are about the same size, right? So I know that my textile density is good, and that's the case for the entire character, right? All right, so the next step is let's take our model now, since the UVs are done, and jump into Substance Painter, and in there we can create some more details like the folds and additional detail to the character, as well as all the painting and texturing. So before we proceed, let's do one other thing. Let's select our model, and let's just decide how many materials do you want for this model. So if you right click and say assign new material, you can go to favorites, for example. I'm just going to assign something like the Lambert, that's fine. And that's going to be the default map or the name, right? But essentially what I've done is I made sure that all the pieces, right, we had many different pieces, are now on the same material, right? So that's going to be my kind of a base material. So I can call this character, for example. Let's just assume that we're going to use one material just for the sake of simplicity, right? So now, since we know it's one material, it's one UV sheet, let's go ahead and export the character out. And we're going to do Alien Cyborg. I'm just going to overwrite the other one. I don't really need the old one anymore, and say replace. Make sure you save your work, and let's fire up Substance Painter. All right, and here I'm going to go to File, New, and let's switch our document resolution to 2K. I am going to leave everything alone and just select my file. It's going to be the Cyborg FBX. I'm going to say open. and say OK. Alright, this is what the character looks like when you first import it in. The next step would be obviously baking. So let's go ahead and bake this character. I'm going to go to Bake Mesh, and I'm going to switch this to 2K. I'm going to say use low as high. I don't have another high version. And for anti-aliasing, I like to switch it to 4. I'm going to say bake. Alright, once it finishes, let's say return to painting mode. And if you didn't have any overlapping UVs, you should see something very similar. You shouldn't have any black spots or any kind of weird, shading. It should be pretty clean, right? Because again, in Maya, we checked our overlapping UVs and everything was up to par. So you should have a clean, nice clean bake. The first thing I would like to do is I could see that I can't see through my cloth, right? It's not double-sided. So to fix that, let's go to our shader and just turn this guy on called PBR Metal Rough with Alpha Test. I'm going to activate that. And now you can see that I can see double-sided. That's great. Another thing that I personally like to do is go into my display settings, and I just like to use this glazed lights as my initial one. Holding down the shift and right clicking, I can change the lights and just review the model, make sure everything looks good. And before we even apply any of the textures, the model should look clean and, without any issues. All right, now the fun part. Now let's figure out how we want to paint this. Now this is not going to be really a Substance Painter tutorial, so I'm not planning on doing anything crazy. Let's just do some basic stuff, right? Okay, so once the bake is done, the next step would be to start creating textures. Now, for this video not to be, 6,000 hours, I actually took my time and painted the character. Let me show you the final outcome. This is what it came out with, and I didn't really use any references. I kind of just had fun and took my time, and this took about 2 hours to just choose and try and see what works and what doesn't work. So this is what I came up with, and this is not really a Substance Painter tutorial, so I don't really have any kind of groundbreaking skills, but let me just show you what I did, and maybe that will help you, or maybe you want to use my character paint as a as kind of a rough reference, right? So let's do this. I'm gonna actually hide all of my layers, and one by one I'll just quickly turn them on and show you what I did and what I chose and maybe why, right? So usually the way I work is just kind of starting from the bottom up, and whenever I paint a character, I just usually first select kind of the skin. So for the skin, I chose this purple color, and what this is if you go to Substance Painter portal, you can type in bone stylized, and that's just a material that you can download. And let me show you what that looks like. It's right here. And I like this a lot. I know it says bone, but I honestly use it for many other things. So it's right here, and you can see if I turn this off, and let me just simply drag this material onto the character. I'll just put it above. You can see what that looks like. I really like the shading, and I like all the details that come with it. And it doesn't need to be a bone just because it's yellow. So I love that material, and I use that for skin. All right. So that is what I did, and then for to keep moving up, let me close this folder. This is going to be steel. So when I turn that on, when I turn that on, you can see it's just a stylized smart material, pre-made smart material. I really didn't do much to that as well, and it's called Steel Medieval Stylized. You're welcome to download that as well. Let me just show you what that looks like. And again, these are all coming from the portal. It's right here, Steel Medieval Stylized. All these are just coming from the Substance Painter portal of materials that you can just download. And then what I did was I just added a darker solid black material over the steel, and I just did that to create a little bit of a variation, right, in the steel, to just kind of go in and choose certain pieces that could be darker, like the soles of the shoes and stuff. All right, I'll just keep going up. So the next one is just the leather, and this is again a smart material. I just made a black leather, and that is what this is. So that's, I think it creates a really cool contrast between a black leather and kind of a blue metallic metal, right? For the eyes, let me show you that. That's just going to be, you know, I just simply colored that white. It's a solid white color. There's no magic here. And for the pupils, I literally just drew them in. It's, I just used the hard brush and created a black circle, and then purple and a couple white ones. And that's my eyes. For the lips, I just created a little red color. Right here you can see I applied the blur filter, right? And if I turn that off, you can see what my beautiful paint job is. I just kind of marked it and then just blurred it, and then it gives you that nice fade, right? And then you can see I set the opacity to 45, right? So it's kind of nice and subtle. All right, then I added some scratches to the metal, and these are just alpha brushes that you can just grab by going to your alphas, and there's some scratches there, or you can use your own custom ones. I just added a few, and the beauty of this is because we didn't overlap any of our UVs, I was able to do asymmetry for the scratches, so you can see they're somewhat random. I thought that was pretty cool. All right, for my war paint, I just added a couple lines here. They're just normal lines. And then I used a warp modifier. So you can see what I did. I just drew the lines, added a black mask to make sure I isolate just the mask on the face, right? Not the eyes. I cleaned that up. So it's just a black mask there. And then I added a warp to warp the lines and make them look a little more messy, right? And that's right here. You can see what that looks like. There's, again, no magic there. And then for, then I added orange. I really like the look of the purple and the orange with the metal, like a blue metal. So for that, I just went around and just touched up different pieces of the texture that could use it. Now, not all of my pieces are actually separated in the UVs. So what I did was, so it's just a solid fill color with a black mask. And if you add a black mask and just go into your polygon fill, I keep using this polygon fill where you can do it section by section. So even if this is not part of your UVs, like all cut out and all nice, you could still come in here and using this tool, you can just very carefully select specific faces that are, you know, that you want to be a certain color. So that's really cool, and that's what I keep doing, right? That's one of my big secrets here. So you don't really have to have perfect UVs where everything is separated to get beautiful textures, right? You could still use this method here where you just do polygon fill. So that's that, and let me keep going. So for cloth highlights, I just added some highlights right here on the cloth. You can see that, and if I turn that off and on, you can see what that looks like. All these are just simple lines. I just drew simple lines, and you can see I added a blur filter to blur them up. If I undo that, you can see what that looks like. It's just a this one right here, artistic heavy, just simple lines with a little blur. And later you'll see me adding some folds as well with the normal map, so that I did that separately. And one thing that I will say is that when I'm using this to add these kind of sharp edges, what I love to do personally, I use this a lot. So I'll use this smudge tool to grab the ends of my paint and just kind of smudge it up and create these sharp effects. And I do that with my folds, and I do that with any highlights, right? It's just a cool trick. And you can see that right here. For example, you see this yellow one. If I make my brush a little bit larger using the smudge, I can just smudge this up, and you can see how it's creating this really nice sharp look. And I don't even need my tablet for that. I'm doing this with my mouse, just kind of smudging it. So that's my trick here. For the hair, I think I just went with simple white, just because there's so much going on here. I didn't really want to do like yet another color, but this is just a fill color, so I could always come in here and, you know, make it any color I want if I ever wanted to. But I'm just gonna leave it white. It seems to work, and it works well with the eyes and the war paint as well, I think. So for the folds, I just created a simple add layer, and then I just used the brush with the height and the normal turned on, and I just created these simple kind of waves, and then used the smudge to create them kind of sharp. And then you can see it's giving you like this cloth kind of effect, right? For ambient occlusion, I wanted to throw this on, and all this is I just created a fill layer, and then I went to my project here and just grabbed my ambient occlusion, and you can see it's a base color, right? So I just took the base layer and just dragged the ambient occlusion right on. If I turn that off, you can see the difference, right? It's just creating these nice highlights for the character that is great for, again, for stylized stuff. And you can even double up on this. You can take this and just say, for example, duplicate, and you can see how it's going to create even more contrast. So again, it's great for stylized stuff. So let me just delete that. So just an AO layer by itself. For baked lighting, you can see what that looks like. So baked lighting is just a, if you generate a filter, you can add bake light. And that's super simple. The way that works is you just add a simple layer, then you can right click on it, you can go to filter, and if you go to filter, you can see it says bake light. When you click on it, it's going to give you these cool automatic shadows kind of built in. And then I just use the blending mode to kind of blend it in. So in this case, I just used like a soft light, and that kind of blended everything in, right? I don't need double, so let me just delete this one. And that's pretty much it. So that's my whole process. You can see I didn't really do any hand painting whatsoever. All of these are just smart materials with a couple simple tricks, and this is what I ended up with, and I think it's pretty cool. And this is a game ready character. And next, if we wanted to, we could bring it into Maya, rig it up, and maybe do some some simple animation or something like that. But I really hope you enjoyed this video. This was a beast for me personally. This took a long time. I hope you liked it, you enjoyed it. Maybe you made something really awesome on your end. And thank you so much for joining me in this video, and we'll just meet in our next one. Thanks for watching.